The story begins with the fact that it was very hot in the city. The high temperature literally melted the asphalt. The huge high-rise buildings accumulated heat, and people tried to hide in the shade from the sun's rays. The girl tried to escape the heat in her room and waved her fan vigorously, directing the air currents into her face. The beauty noticed that she was literally melting from the hellish heat and was being roasted by the sun's rays that were able to shine through the window. But to the great regret of the girl herself, her phone rang and she had to get out of bed. The girl immediately guessed that she was being bothered by clients she had not heard from since the morning. The girl started looking for her slippers, and the phone continued to ring annoyingly. The beauty realized that she should turn off the sound so that she would not hear calls in the future. The girl's hand grabbed the telephone receiver and she changed her displeased tone to a more affectionate one. The girl introduced her service store 4Cs and asked how she could help. The girl was told on the phone that the air conditioner had broken down, and they urgently needed to fix it. The girl said that her worker had sunstroke due to the intense heat, but she would send him anyway. The voice on the phone said he would pay $100, but the girl began to bargain, citing the worker's poor health. The client immediately increased the amount to $200, and the girl replied that she would immediately send a worker. The beauty entered Li Qing's room and asked him to get up quickly because he was going to work now. The guy did not react to the girl's words and remained lying helplessly on the bed. The girl asked the worker not to pretend to be dead and said that she had received an order at the place of fixing alternating current. Li Qing asked Flora to have mercy on him and said that he might just die from sunstroke. The girl tried to persuade the guy with a generous tip from a rich client, but the worker was not very interested. Flora decided that she couldn't persuade the guy with money, so she said that the client had a very sweet voice. The girl said that the client was apparently a beauty who was currently at home, and it would be inappropriate to send a guy there. Li Qing immediately got out of bed and called it torture to live in such heat with a broken air conditioner. The guy said that he had to help the client, after which he found out the address where he should go. A few minutes later, Li Qing was already riding his scooter straight to the girl's aid. The guy looked at the residential property and concluded that the client was apparently really rich. The guard stopped the guy and began to ask him why he had come here, to which Li Qing replied that he was here on behalf of Madame Az. The man led the boy along and said that he had to register first before entering this hotel. Li Qing found the right door indicated in the address and began to examine the door. The guy found the doorbell and began to actively press it to attract the attention of the owner. Li Qing asked if anyone was home and realized that he didn't want to just knock on someone else's door. The guy tried to get through to his mistress for a long time, but he was unsuccessful. A female voice asked through the door who had come, and Li Qing realized that he shouldn't have come in such hellish heat. Mrs. Ace opened the door and a stream of sweat was running down her face. The girl asked again if the guy had come to fix the air conditioner. Seeing the girl, Li Qing became very embarrassed and said that he was the same guy she had called on the phone. The girl apologized to the guy for waiting for her for a long time and explained that she was taking a shower. Mrs. Ace opened the door fully and invited the worker inside. Li Qing went inside with his entire set of tools, and the girl kept complaining about the heat. A frustrated Mrs. Ace said she started sweating again as soon as she got out of the shower. Li Qing said that he too had been feeling quite hot lately. The guy asked about the air conditioner that needed to be fixed, and the girl invited him into her bedroom. Upon entering, the boy immediately noticed a sweet smell that wafted throughout the room. Li Qing looked at the air conditioner and said that it was too high, and asked the girl for a chair. The girl said that she would now bring one chair, and the guy thanked her for it. The worker was sorting out his tools and thinking that his client was very beautiful. The guy suddenly turned around to the girl's bed and found her underwear there, which she had put on before the shower. The guy looked at the girl's clothes for a long time and became very distracted from his work. The guy realized that the girl had changed her clothes immediately after the shower, but his gaze couldn't tear itself away from the clothes on the bed. Li Qing looked at the girl's clothes and tried to understand why his attention was drawn so strongly to it. The guy's hand suddenly reached towards Mrs. Ace's clothes. The worker briefly considered whether to touch the client's underwear, but Li Qing was still able to overcome himself and grabbed his own hand, asking himself to stop. The guy told himself that he was a decent person and could not do such dirty things. Then Mrs. Ace herself returned, bringing a chair for the servant. It had been a while since Li Qing began to inspect the air conditioner. The guy said he needed to take apart the air conditioner and asked the girl to hand him a screwdriver. The girl handed the screwdriver to the guy and asked if this was the one he meant. Li Qing tried not to look at the girl and thanked her for helping him. The beauty said that she was happy to help, while the guy tried not to look at her body. Mrs. Ace asked the guy how much he earns per month at this job. Li Qing replied that he earned between 2,000 and 3,000 on good days, and between 1,000 and 2,000 on bad days, after which the girl asked if this was enough for a family. The worker said that he was earning his living, after which he named the reason for the breakdown. The evaporator coil was not working, and the girl asked how this could affect the air cooling. The guy said that the board might be damaged by water and asked to let him disassemble the air conditioner. The guy started to disassemble the air conditioner and the doorbell rang again. The girl said that she would now go away to open the door and asked the guy not to be distracted from work. Li Qing let out a sigh of relief and thought that he would finally be able to quickly finish his work since no one would distract him with conversations. The guy removed the board and said that he could fix everything in literally 5 minutes. A little more than 5 minutes had passed since Li Qing removed the board from the air conditioner. The guy started putting the air conditioner back together after he fixed the problem. Li Qing began to collect his tools and realized that he was sweating again, which meant he would need to take a shower when he returned. The guy discovered that Mrs. Ace was not around and wondered where she had disappeared to and why she hadn't returned for so long. Li Qing had already started to leave and thought that perhaps her husband had returned. On the way out, the worker heard a man reporting to his boss about capturing the target. The guy realized that the sound was coming from the living room and suspected something was wrong with all this. The guys in suits gathered around the tied-up girl and one of them promised his boss to return Mrs. Ace. The guy watched everything from around the corner so that no one would notice him, so he couldn't find out everything. At first, Li Qing did not understand what was happening, but over time he realized that this was an invasion with kidnapping. At first, the worker did not understand what to do and wanted to figure out how to hide as far away as possible. The guy appreciated the girl's good qualities. For example, she is not arrogant and is a very open person. Li Qing realized that during the entire time he worked, the girl did not look down on him and was very sweet. The guy was faced with a choice. Should he interfere in trouble and help a girl he barely knew? The leader of the thugs ordered his men to put the girl in the car. The man warned the kidnappers not to attract attention from others, and Li Qing realized that he didn't have much time. The guy couldn't think of anything smarter than to simply enter the living room disguised as an ordinary worker. Everyone, including Mrs. Ace, turned to look at the guy and began to watch him closely. Li Qing immediately played dumb and said that he had never seen so many guests at his client's place. The main kidnapper ordered the guy to stop and freeze. The toolkit fell from the worker's hand and Li Qing stood like a pillar. Li Qing sat down on the floor and began to beg the thugs for mercy and said that he would surrender without resistance. One of the guys immediately didn't believe that the guy was scared when he saw their boss and asked the guy if he was serious. The boss asked Li Qing who he was and what he was doing here. The guy looked nervously at the kidnappers. The worker saw a knife in the hands of one of the boss's servants and began to beg not to kill him. The guy burst into tears and said that he was still a virgin and couldn't die now. Everyone in the room suddenly fell silent and began to look at Li Qing with disapproval. One of the bandits asked what they got out of it and why the guy was telling the bandits this. The boss asked the guy not to play such games with him and to tell everything as it is if he still wants to live. Li Qing told the truth that he was a worker who came to fix the air conditioner. The boss turned to Mrs. Ace and asked if this guy was really an ordinary repairman. The girl tried to buy time for the young man to call the police, but she couldn't expect him to just run out. The tape was removed from Mrs. Ace's mouth and she confirmed that Li Qing had come to fix the air conditioner, after which she asked the guy to let go. The guy became even more hysterical and asked to be let go, saying that he was seeing the girl for the first time. The boss called Zach over and continued to look at the guy sitting on the floor. The man asked his henchman to kill the worker, and Li Qing became very nervous. Zach didn't understand why they would kill a simple repairman and tried to dissuade his boss from doing so. The big guy said that this guy saw their faces and could contact the police. The boss came to the conclusion that Li Qing knew too much about them and must die. The boss told Zach that this was his chance to prove his loyalty to him and sent him to Li Qing. Zach assured his boss that he would do everything cleanly and neatly, although he himself did not want to kill the guy. The scumbag said that Li Qing could only blame his own failure for this, and pointed the knife at him. Zach said that he didn't want to torture the guy and would give him a quick death, after which he swung the knife. Li Qing looked at the frightened sharp knife heading towards him. Mrs. Ace asked the thugs not to kill the guy and asked Zach to spare the guy. But Li Qing was able to intercept the thug's hand and stop the knife before it reached his neck. Surprised, Zach asked what it was and the boss turned around to survey the situation. Li Qing apologized to the bandits and said that he did not want to die yet. The guy abruptly pushed the thug's hand away and hit him sharply and unexpectedly in the stomach. The other henchmen turned around at their comrade's shout and saw Li Qing already standing on his feet. The guy stood next to the defeated Zach, who was writhing in pain at the sight of the blow. The boss was surprised by the guy's abilities and said that he was apparently capable of something. The big guy ordered the thugs to take the girl to the car and took charge of the difficult guy. The bandits accepted the boss's order and then checked to make sure that Mrs. Ace was definitely unable to move. Meanwhile, the boss and Li Qing stood directly opposite each other. The thugs taped the girl's mouth again, despite her attempts to resist. The girl tried to shout to someone, but her mouth was already taped and the bandits took her in their arms. Li Qing watched as the girl was taken away and understood that his plan would no longer work. The boss called the guy over and tried to explain something to him, while Li Qing himself was thinking about the girl. The boss said that he didn't have time to worry about others, and it was absolutely normal for the guy to want to appear like a hero by saving a beautiful girl. But the boss also warned that we shouldn't forget about him, who won't allow us to save Mrs. Ace. The girl tried her best to escape from the hands of the thugs, but she was unsuccessful. The boss took off his jacket and shirt and said that he hadn't practiced for a long time. The boss stood there shirtless and said he wondered if he had lost his skills. The boss was left alone with Li Qing while his henchmen tried to load the girl into the car. The boys were very upset that the tied-up girl continued to resist. One of the guys really sympathized with the guy because he just came to fix the air conditioner, and now he was left alone with their boss. Another scumbag said that Boss Hay decided to deal with the worker himself, which meant he would torture him. The kidnappers agreed that the guy had simply ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. While the boys were laughing at the ridiculous situation, Li Qing was able to sneak up behind one of the bandits and hit him with a chair. The surprised teammate saw Frank flying into a knockout and asked what happened. A healthy and whole Li Qing emerged from behind the wall and the attacker couldn't believe it. The guy greeted the bandit. There were no signs of a fight on the repairman himself. The bandit still couldn't believe that the guy had survived, much less been able to defeat their boss. But what most disturbed the scumbag was that it happened very quickly and silently. Boss Hay was indeed unconscious after his unsuccessful fight with Li Qing. The three of them looked at each other awkwardly, and Li Qing began to laugh ironically at the scumbag. The attacker realized that he would not be able to resist the guy and immediately began to run away from there. But Li Qing's slipper, which he sent, flew into the back of the bandit's head. The kidnapper fell to the ground from the strong blow and the repairman moved closer to him. Li Qing joked that this was his signature move, which he calls Cinderella's glass slipper. The guy started laughing at the bandits, and the disgruntled and tied-up girl tried to remind him of herself. Li Qing heard this and correctly noted that he had forgotten to untie his client. The danger had passed, and Li Qing gave the girl a glass of water so that she could calm down. The guy worriedly asked if everything was okay with the girl, and she replied that she had to thank the worker. Mrs. Ace said that she appreciated the guy's help and considered him a reliable guy. The guy said that he often hears this and added that the girl should be careful, because he could turn out to be a villain and attack her. The indignant girl asked the guy again what he had just said. Li Qing realized that he had said too much and began to justify himself, calling himself a good guy who did not want to do anything like that. Embarrassed, Mrs. Ace put her hand to her temple and asked him to just forget about it. The guy and the girl continued to sit opposite each other and awkwardly remained silent. Mrs. Ace told the guy that he could leave now if he had done all the work. Li Qing awkwardly reminded him that the girl had not paid him for repairing the air conditioner. The girl also remembered this and looked towards the guy. The beauty apologized to the guy and said that she would immediately bring him the money. The guy advised filing a police report before giving the money, in case the tied-up men in suits woke up. Mrs. Ace turned to the boy and said that she really should do that. The girl took out her phone and quickly dialed the number of her bodyguards. Mrs. Ace told about the attack of 4 people and asked her guys to come to the villa right now. Li Qing guessed that this did not look like a police call and thought that the girl was a gangster. After a short conversation, the girl hung up and began dialing the police number. Mrs. Ace gave the address where she was located and said that the people who tried to kidnap her were now in her house, but were neutralized. Li Kang immediately let out a sigh of relief and decided that he had been thinking too much. The guy heard the girl's bodyguards climbing the stairs and decided that they were after her again. The boy heard the sound of shoes and became even more convinced that Mrs. Ace was in danger. There are at least 4 people quickly approaching the door right now. The girl finished talking to the police and said that she was expecting them as soon as possible. Madame Ace finished talking on the phone and saw a worried Li Qing. The guy ran towards the girl and tried to grab her by the shoulders, trying to save her from the attack. The girl, not understanding what was happening, asked the guy what he was doing. Li Qing heard the boys go up to the floor and realized that it was too late to run. Li Qing knew that there were too many opponents and it would be dangerous to fight and try to protect the girl. The guy realized that he wouldn't be able to defeat so many people, so it would be better to hide the girl on the 2nd floor. Madame Ace didn't understand what Li Qing was talking about, so she elbowed him in the chest and tried to escape. The guy grabbed his chest and didn't understand why the girl had broken free and was now trying to escape. The guy asked the beauty not to run so fast, but she asked him not to approach her. The frightened girl began screaming throughout the house, asking for help, while running to the 2nd floor. Li Qing managed to get behind the frightened lady and cover her mouth with his hand. The girl was still afraid of Li Qing, but now she no longer resisted, realizing that he had no bad intentions. Li Qing explained that he was now trying to save the girl, not harm her. The worker walked up to the window and asked his client to look down to convince her of his words. The guy pointed to a black car that had parked nearby and said that at least 4 people had gotten out of it. Mrs. Ace recognized her security car and told the guy that that was not the case at all. One of the lady's bodyguards kicked down the door to the room. Li Qing heard the boys enter the house and warned the girl that they were already on their way. The guy came to the conclusion that he needed to hide the girl as quickly as possible so that no one could get to her. The girl tried to warn the young man that they were her security and that he had nothing to worry about. Li Qing couldn't think of anything better to do than simply cover the client with his body and lay her on the bed. The couple remained lying on the bed while the girl's bodyguards searched for her throughout the house. Li Qing put his finger to his lips and asked the girl to hide well while he took care of the rest. The bodyguard burst into the room and was shocked to see that there was some guy lying on Mrs. Ace. The man immediately called Li Qing a pervert and asked what he did to the girl. The girl stood between the guys and asked everyone to calm down, after which she explained that Li Qing had saved her. The surprised worker looked at the boys and asked if they knew each other. Mrs. Ace said that this was her bodyguard and that she had just called him herself. Law enforcement officers had already arrived at the house in a service car. The police quickly climbed the stairs and began looking for the right door. The guardians of the law entered and notified the owner of their arrival in response to the call. The police asked where the suspects were, and the girl explained that they had managed to tie them up in the bathroom. Li Qing saw the girl surrounded by bodyguards and police and realized that he would not receive payment for the service today, since he was simply providing free maintenance. It was already late evening and the repairman returned back to the service center. Li Qing arrived at the center of the Four Seas, which was still shining brightly. The boy informed Hua's sister that he had returned and got off his moped. Hua asked why the guy came back so late. Was he having some kind of affair? Li Qing said that he almost died and added that housekeeping was too dangerous. The girl said that the guy looked pretty cool and asked what little Li Qing did that almost killed him. The worker replied that if Hua continued to tease him like that, he would take care of her first. Hua laughed ironically at the guy's threats and said that she was very afraid of his reprisals. The girl told Li Qing to deal with her right now, because she wanted to see how good he was. The guy didn't appreciate the girl's humor and simply walked past her. Li Qing ordered Hua to get out of here and added that he was going to take a shower now. The worried girl realized that something had really happened to the guy, so she asked what he had encountered. The guy said that he almost died when he finished fixing the air conditioner because their client was being kidnapped. As he left, Li Qing described the height and weight of the attackers, but Hua quickly stopped the guy. The girl grabbed the worker by the shoulder and nervously asked where the service charge was. Li Qing said that the lady must have sent the money here after some time, because at that time there were kidnappers and police in her house. Hua didn't believe the guy and accused him of buying cigarettes with the money he got. The guy said that the girl lives in a prestigious area and he saved her, so she definitely can't give such a small amount. Hua still looked at her worker with distrust and accused him of lying. After thinking a little more, the girl said that the guy was right and he really should have been paid a lot. The guy said that he was scared and almost lost his life, and the girl invited him to dinner. Li Qing agreed and added with displeasure that the girl would not listen to him in any case. Hua asked the guy to wait and went upstairs to change for dinner. A black car, similar to that of Mrs. Ace's bodyguards, pulled up to the service center. At first, Li Qing didn't understand who it was and wondered why these people were ringing the doorbell. At the door, he met today's client, who was inspecting the place. Li Hun recognized the girl and asked why she was here and what happened to the kidnappers. The girl handed over a large sum and said that it was a service fee. Mrs. Ace apologized to the guy for not paying at home and explained that she forgot about it because of the mess that was going on there. The girl also thanked the guy once again for saving her. Li Qing said that this girl was too kind and invited her to come inside and sit down. The girl sat down on a chair in the living room and thanked the guy for the invitation. The lady said that there was one more thing she would like to discuss with the guy. Surprised, Li Qing looked at the girl and asked what exactly she wanted from him. The girl said that she wants to make the guy her bodyguard because she saw his skills today. According to the girl, the guy's skills are too good and he will not find any rivals among her competitors. The surprised Li Qing didn't understand how exactly he should respond to the proposal, so he simply remained silent. The girl reminded this guy that although his current salary was enough for him, he could earn much more from her and all he needed to do was ensure her safety. Ms. Ace mentioned a 5-figure salary and Li Qing calculated that it was hundreds of thousands. The guy said that such a sum was too huge for the position of a bodyguard. The girl reminded him that this was much more than he was getting now and asked if the guy wanted to try. Li Qing thought about it and said that unfortunately he couldn't do it. The uncomprehending Mrs. Ace did not expect a refusal and asked the guy again why he refused. The guy said that he had never worked as a bodyguard and was also used to working here, and did not want to go anywhere. The girl tried to change the guy's mind, but eventually resigned herself and said that she would not persuade him. But Mrs. Ace was not going to let the guy go just like that and asked him to think about it. For feedback, the girl left her business card and indicated her phone number. Before leaving, Mrs. Ace said that the guy could come in the morning, but now she had some things to do. Hua, who came up, did not find the girl and asked Li Qing who came. The guy said it was today's customer who brought the service fee. Seeing the money, the girl immediately pounced on it and snatched it from the guy's hands. Hua also saw a business card in the guy's hands and decided to ask who left it. The guy explained that they saw some skills in him and the client wanted him to become her bodyguard. Shuo read Lin Qiuqiu's name and the name of the international organization on the business card. The girl hit Li Qing on the shoulder and screamed loudly in admiration. Hua said that the guy was very lucky and he was turning from a peasant into a beautiful phoenix. The girl was most interested in the guy's salary and he replied that he was offered a 5-figure figure, but he refused. The girl started shaking her worker and said that he was crazy if he refused something like that. The guy said that it was okay because he didn't know how to work as a bodyguard and couldn't leave Sister Hua. The girl looked at Li Qing and said that he was a complete fool if he could refuse such an offer. The girl tried to persuade the guy to agree to take the new job and added that he could visit her at any time. Li Qing still stood his ground and told the girl that he absolutely did not want to go there. Hua said that this international organization is the largest in Yanjin and students from prestigious universities are racking their brains over how to get in. And fate gave the guy this opportunity. Li Qing repeated once again that he did not want to do this, and it was better for him to be closer to Hua. The girl yelled at the guy and asked him to stop talking nonsense. The girl reminded the guy that she took him in because he was homeless. But in her opinion, Li Qing couldn't hang around in the store all the time and had to call the company right now. The guy said that the girl gave him a whole night to think about it, and since Hua insisted on it so much, he would meet her tomorrow. Hua breathed a sigh of relief and said that she would treat the guy today, after which she asked where he wanted to go. Li Qing and Sister Hua went to a local nightclub instead of the expected restaurant. Hua asked what they were doing at the bar and how the drinks would fill their stomachs. Li Qing said that he didn't come here for food, but just wanted to drink and relax. The girl thought that the guy interpreted her words as her driving him away. So she told him that this was not the case at all. It was just that such an opportunity came once in a lifetime. Tired of this, Li Qing said that he knew this and thanked Hua for being so kind to him. The guy picked up the bottle from the table and thanked the girl for looking after him for the past 2 years. Li Qing raised the bottle to his mouth and thanked the girl again. Hua told the guy that he had changed a lot and added that she felt ashamed because of it. The girl felt guilty, and Li Qing proposed to drink to their health and future. Hua asked the guy to drink more slowly and scolded him for drinking almost all the drinks she ordered. Li Qing laid his head on the girl's shoulder and began to flirt with her. The guy already had his hand on Hua's waist and the girl decided to ask how drunk he was. Li Qing assured the girl that he was still conscious, and Hua tried to calm the guy down. The guy looked at this girl and asked who she thought he was, a good person or a bad person. The girl awkwardly said that she thought Li Qing was a good person, but she still didn't understand why he was asking all this. Li Qing laughed and mockingly said that this might not be true, after which he became even closer to the girl. The drunk guy took Hua by the hand and the girl began to ask what he was going to do. Li Qing stood up from his chair and invited the girl to dance with him. A frightened Hua said she couldn't dance and then asked the drunk guy to let her go. Li Qing tried to press closer and closer to the frightened girl, and then she tried to push away from him. The guy asked Hua what she was afraid of and said that he could teach her to dance if she was shy. The guy turned around and walked away, saying that the girl was in the bar for the first time and simply had to dance. The couple was immediately surrounded by guys who also came to the club and began to appreciate Hua's beauty. One of the guys stood behind the girl and began loudly discussing her appearance and figure. The guy's hand was already approaching the girl's body, but then he heard indignant cries. The bully's hand was intercepted by Li Qing, who threateningly asked the boy to calm down. Xing began to squeeze the guy's hand tighter and tighter, and he begged him to let go. Li Qing took pity on the impudent boy and let go of his hand, after which he asked him not to bother Hua. But the guy couldn't stand this kind of attitude towards himself and asked Qin if he knew who he was dealing with. Another guy had already approached Li Qing from behind and swung at him, but Qin's reaction was much faster, and now his hand was swinging at the attacker. The guy managed to give the bully a strong slap and throw him aside, but Li Qing didn't stop there and continued to beat up the impudent thug. For a long time, the guy beat up the local guys and taught them how to communicate with girls. After a short fight, the thugs offendedly told Li Qing to wait for his punishment. After the threats, both boys quickly ran away, leaving Li Qing and Hua in a state of confusion. The girl suggested that Li Qing leave here quickly so that the hooligans would not call anyone. But Li Qing had no intention of going anywhere. He said that these guys were just 2 naughty children who weren't worth being afraid of. The guy took up Hua again and offered his help in teaching the girl to dance. The girl hesitated for a long time, but still agreed and said that she would dance a little. Li Qing was pleased with this news and began to show Sister Hua some movements. The dance floor became much more lighted and the DJ turned up the music to full volume. One of the guys Li Qing had beaten pointed towards the dance floor and told his boss that his attackers were there. The guy's hand pointed at Li Qing and Hua, who were trying to join the crowd and dance. Qing praised the girl, and she in turn agreed that dancing was indeed very easy. The big guy whistled and called the dancing couple over to talk to them closer. The man repeated to Li Qing and Hua once again that he was addressing them specifically. The scumbag said he was curious about how fierce the couple was, and he had imagined them a little differently. The big guy's henchmen started laughing at their boss's jokes and called him very witty. An indignant Hua ordered the two teenagers to shut their mouths and stop laughing. The boss called the girl brave and added that he likes brave girls. Hua didn't know how to respond to the scumbag's compliments, so she just kept quiet. The delighted thug said that the girl was very hot and he had hit the jackpot for the evening. Li Qing stood up for Hua and asked the thug what he wanted from them. The man laughed and said that the couple was left with only two possible options. The scumbag offered to give 100,000 as compensation for his brother's medical expenses. But there was a second option. But then Hua would have to spend the night with the boss's brothers. The teenagers were already laughing happily and assuring the guy that they would not offend the girl. The girl became indignant and called it all blackmail, but Li Qing asked her not to worry and assured her that he would settle everything. King handed the big guy a cigarette and said that it was all a misunderstanding and they didn't want to cause any trouble, but his brothers were chasing them. The thug smashed the glass of alcohol he was holding in his hands out of anger. The thug grabbed Li Qing by the collar and asked if he really wanted to blame his brothers. The big guy looked at Hua again and said that the girl asked for his brothers to pester her. Li Qing realized that there would be no more negotiations, so he hit his boss in the face. The terrified henchmen saw Qing knock out their boss's tooth and began to scream. One of the guys swore that he would kill Li Qing, and then turned to face the crowd of his friends. The scumbag called everyone to catch and beat up the new visitor. The owner of the club heard all this and ordered the security to throw the instigators of the fight out and call the police. A police squad quickly arrived at the scene in a police car, as the owner had requested. The officer ordered her patrolman to immediately detain everyone involved in the fight. A few hours later, all the boys were taken to the police station. The staff made the boys do squats and began to lecture them on how they were wrong to get involved with gangs. The policewoman pointed a lamp at Li Qing and began asking him his name and where he was from. The guy covered his face with his hand and said that he was going to go blind, and he also added that the girl had watched too many crime films. The employee was not in the mood to listen to the guy's jokes and asked him to answer the question. The guy didn't want to answer all the questions quickly, so he just gave his name. Hua was also at the station and explained to the police officer that they were innocent because the hooligans were the first ones to confront them. During the interrogation, the policewoman tormented Li Qing with questions about the Black Tiger Gang and why he fought with them. The guy, of course, didn't understand what was being discussed, and said that he was an ordinary person and was not in a gang. The officer was distrustful of Li Qing and asked ironically if he was really an ordinary person. The girl pointed out that the boss of those guys outside is now in the hospital and was knocked out with one blow. The guy said that workers who looked like them must be very strong, and he would not have beaten that man if he had known that he was so weak. The girl reminded that the guy was able to defeat 10 people and remained without a scratch. This does not look like just brute force. The policewoman asked where Li Qing trained for this and what kind of scumbag he was. The guy glanced at the employee's chest and said that her collar looked too open. Li Qing said it was incredible that the girl's shirt could no longer hold up her breasts. The guy didn't stop flattering the policewoman and called her very sweet, after which he said that many of his colleagues were not indifferent to her. Li Qing said that since there was such a beautiful policewoman here, he wanted to be arrested many more times, but the officer could not stand it and slammed her hand on the table. The girl realized that the guy was very suspicious and was trying to change the subject of the conversation. The policewoman stood up and walked towards the detainee while Li Qing was trying to find out what she would do. The girl was already very close and the guy thought that she would want to hit him for his vulgar compliments. The girl stood almost right next to Li Qing and he was able to get an even better look at her chest. The policewoman asked why the guy was trying to change the subject of the conversation and also asked if he knew martial arts. The employee said that the largest local gang had hired several powerful killers. The guy smelled the girl's body and thought that she wanted to seduce him and catch him in his weakness. The policewoman asked if Li Qing was a hired killer, adding that someone from Black Tiger had taken offense at his gang. Another girl entered the interrogation room and called the inspector. The girl said that witnesses confirmed that Li Qing did not start the fight, and that it was simply self-defense, so there was no point in interrogating him any further. The employee said that she understood everything, and moved a little further away from Li Qing. The girl explained to the guy that he was lucky this time, but advised him not to get caught by her again. At the exit, a worried Hua was waiting for the guy, who immediately began asking if everything was okay with Li Qing. The employee saw the inspector's displeased look and also asked if everything was okay with her. The girl said that this guy is not as simple as he seems and asked to bring his case. The inspector asked her assistant to do this as quickly as possible. The girl noticed an unbuttoned button on the inspector's shirt and called her over again. The interested inspector asked what had happened, not paying attention to her appearance. The girl pointed out to her boss that the button had come off and she remembered that it happened during the interrogation. The employee asked the inspector to be more careful, because she has to help sew the button back on every time. Hua saw Li Qing looking at the police officers with concern and asked, "What happened?" The guy waved it off and said that everything was fine, after which he suggested going home. Meanwhile, the inspector and his assistants were still working at the police station. The policewoman called the captain over and said that Li Qing's file was a little strange. The dossier said that Li Qing was a 25-year-old guy who returned to the country 2 years ago. Nothing more. Already at the Four Seas Service Center, the girl called Li Qing over to her. Hua said that she had already washed herself and reminded Li Qing that it was his turn now. The guy took all his clothes, a towel, and went into the shower, humming his song. Li Qing hummed how much he loved taking showers and adjusted the water temperature to the right temperature. The guy had already stood under the stream of water and many scars were visible on his back. The boy also had similar scars on his ribs that resembled cuts. The guy's entire body, except for his hands, was covered in scars. In the morning, Li Qing went to the international company as Sister Hua requested. Mrs. Ace couldn't believe that the guy actually came to her work. Li Qing said that he really wanted to work in her company, but not as a bodyguard, but as a repairman. The worried girl asked again if the guy really wanted to work as a repairman. The girl thought that the guy was truly talented, and if he was on her side, he would save her from many problems, so he could first be accepted as an ordinary repairman, and then convinced to become a bodyguard. The boss called on the phone and asked An Qing to come to her now. Mrs. Ace told the boy that from now on he would be part of the maintenance department. An Qing entered the office and informed Miss Lin about this. Miss Lin introduced her assistant to Li Qing and said that he would work in the maintenance department after he filled out the application form. The assistant turned around and asked the new guy to follow her. After some time, Li Qing finished filling out the form and went to see An Qing. The guy came up with the completed form and asked to have it checked. An Qing looked at this form and noticed that the guy hadn't written his phone number. Li Qing said that he did not have a mobile phone, and therefore no number. The girl was surprised that there are young people who don't have a phone. Apparently, Lin respects it very much. An Qing had to accept the questionnaire and she took the guy to the maintenance department. One of the department's employees was eating noodles right at his workplace when the girl entered the room. An Qing didn't like that her employees were eating lunch during working hours and immediately took notice of it. The guys immediately turned towards the girl and began to look at her awkwardly. An Qing warned the boys that she would deduct 100 from their salaries for this offense. She also showed them the new employee and asked them to take care of each other. The newcomer immediately said that he was pleased to meet everyone and said that his name was Li Qing. One of the staff members said that there was nothing pleasant about it and accused the guy of being the reason why the devil and Qing came here. Li Qing immediately pounced with questions about why An Qing was a devil and why the guy was quitting. The employee explained that the company has a lot of rules and they want the guys to fix everything for an average salary, and 2 have already left. They rang the phone at the technical service department, but no one was in a hurry to answer. The disgruntled employee asked Li Qing to pick up the phone, and he kindly agreed. The guy introduced himself and was asked to come to the underwear department because the computer there was malfunctioning. Li Qing asked where the underwear department was and was told it was on the 15th floor. The guy went to the elevator and a few minutes later was already on the 15th floor. Li Qing said he was from the support department and asked whose computer was crashing. The surprised girls folded their underwear and couldn't understand where the guy came from. Another girl came out to the guy and said that she was having problems with her computer. Li Qing assessed the girl and thought that she looked quite young, which meant she was probably an intern. The girl showed the guy the computer and said that it suddenly broke down while he was working. Li Qing said that there was nothing serious and he could fix it in 10 minutes. About 10 minutes passed and Li Qing pressed the start button, saying that everything was ready. The computer screensaver featured a tied-up employee in an erotic dress. Li Qing started to feel a little embarrassed as soon as he saw the intro, and it was evident on his face. The girl realized that she had completely forgotten about the screensaver, and this made her feel ashamed. The employee told the guy that if he fixed the computer, then he should hurry up and leave. The girl said that they would see each other again, and Li Qing realized from the moles on her back that it was this employee on the screensaver. The girl pounced on the guy and asked if he noticed the moles on her back and realized that it was her on the screensaver. The frightened employee asked the guy not to tell anyone about this. The girl began to threaten the guy, and he calmly replied that he would not tell anyone about it. It's time for lunch, which means all the department employees can have a snack. Li Qing discovered that he didn't have any cash with him, which meant he needed to withdraw money from the bank to have lunch. The guy went to the bank, which was not that far from the office. Just a couple of minutes later, Li Qing was standing in line with an elderly grandmother. The guy heard 2 guys discussing the upcoming robbery and became very wary. One of the attackers asked his partner to shut his mouth and wait for a signal, and Li Qing realized that this was a strange conversation for bank visitors. The guy realized that 2 people definitely wouldn't want to rob the bank, because there were a lot of people there. Li Qing saw Lin Qiu with a suitcase in her hands and wondered what she was doing here. The guy noticed the suitcase in her hands and guessed that it was filled with money. A picture of everything that was happening immediately formed in Li Qing's head, and he realized that this could all end very badly. The guy grabbed his boss by the hand and asked her to stop immediately. The girl recognized Li Qing and asked how she could help him and why he grabbed her hand. Li Qing said that there was something wrong with this bank and asked the boss to leave. An Qing approached and slapped the guy on the hands, and he let go of his boss. Lin Qing said that if the guy needed something, he could say so. But touching Madame Lin was forbidden. The guy immediately got nervous and said that he didn't want to do it. He tried to warn them. But before Li Qing could warn about the upcoming robbery, shots were heard in the building. The masked robbers ordered everyone to lie down on the ground and not move. Otherwise, they would open fire. One of the robbers ordered everyone to hide their hands behind their heads and move quietly into the reception area. And he also warned that he would kill anyone who tried to escape. Li Qing told the frightened girls not to panic and to do whatever the bandits said. The guy also told this girl to hand over the suitcase to the robbers if they saw it. The robber fired another shot into the ceiling and asked the visitors to move quickly to the reception area. Another shot rang out and shouts for people to hurry to the reception area. The reception area was empty in the meantime, but people began to listen to the robbers. The armed bandits also warned everyone to leave their phones there. Li Qing immediately began to analyze the robbers and realized that this was not their first case, but only one of them was armed. The bandits had everything clear. 4 people in a group, 3 controlled the crowd, while 1 watched. But there is something strange. One of the bandits tried to break the glass with a fire extinguisher, but it didn't work. This is what seems strange to Li Qing, because the guys were supposed to be professionals. The guy with the fire extinguisher told the boss that glass can't just be broken. But the leader said that otherwise they would not get the money, so he forced his ward to continue beating. Li Qing noticed that the chief robber kept looking at his watch, as if he was waiting for something. The guy realized that the robbers didn't know about the bulletproof glass in the bank, but that's strange because they don't seem like idiots. The guy had a drawing in his hands, and Li Qing immediately began to look at it. There was a girl in the picture who looked very much like Lin Qiu, and the guy found it strange. Li Qing guessed that perhaps the main goal was not robbing the bank at all. One of the bandits turned towards Li Qing and pointed his finger at him. Li Qing thought that he had been exposed and even became a little nervous. The masked thug ordered the guy to stand up and continued pointing his finger at him. But the bandit didn't mean the guy, but the 2 girls who were behind him, Lin Qiu and An Qing. Li Qing realized that it would be very bad if the robber recognized the girl from the drawing. The bandit actually started comparing Lin Qiu with the girl in the picture. Li Qing knew that this could be the last straw, so he started shouting his boss's name. The 2 robbers began to look at each other, not understanding the guy. Li Qing hugged An Qing to confuse the robbers and said that he would protect her. The girl didn't understand what was happening while the guy was confessing his love to her. A frightened Lin Qiu stood next to the bandit and looked at her drawing. One of the robbers asked the guy again what he called the girl. Li Qing stood in front of the girl and asked the robbers what they wanted to do with Lin Qiu. An Qing didn't understand why she was being called by the boss's name, but she noticed the surprised looks of the robbers and guessed that Lin Qiu was their target. The robber asked the girl again what her name was. An Qing realized that it was time to play along and said that her name was indeed Lin Qiu. One of the bandits told the boss that he saw some similarities between the girl in the picture and An Qing. But the boss was not so simple and said that he did not think so and that they were trying to deceive them. The police quickly arrived at the scene and surrounded the bank building. The police officer ordered her employees to surround all exits of the bank in groups of 2 and protect the hostages at any cost. The atmosphere in the bank remained tense and the robbers threatened all visitors. One of the bandits approached the boss to tell him about the troubles. The guy said that the police should have already been notified about the robberies. The boss kept comparing An Qing with the girl in the picture, but he couldn't find any resemblance. The robber told the boss that they had no more time and they could not drag it out for so long. The boss said he liked this girl and ordered that she be tied up and that she would be their main hostage. A girl was hiding behind the cash register, trying not to make any sounds. But the bandit went up to her and banged on the table. The thug said that he saw a worker there and pointed a gun towards the cash register. The bandit said he saw a small clerk hiding under the table. The robber ordered her to immediately throw all the money out the window or he would shoot her in the head. The girl didn't even think about resisting and threw out a huge bag of cash. The accomplices kept reminding the boss about the time and asking him to hurry. The boss ordered to take the hostage with us and get out of here. But the bandit was stopped by Li Qing, who suddenly grabbed his leg and asked him not to do it. Li Qing said that he could not live without Qiu and asked the robbers to take him hostage too. The boss called the guy crazy and ordered him to get away from him immediately. One of the accomplices advised the boss to take the guy with him, citing the fact that they had no time left. The bandits said that the guy was really crazy. They also added that there were a lot of girls around and it was not worth making such sacrifices. A huge police squad was already meeting the robbers outside the bank. The police officer reminded all officers to be careful and protect the lives of the hostages. After a short briefing, the policewoman gave the command to move out, and all the cops began to carry out their tasks. The robbers, meanwhile, simply drove past the police with the hostages in the car. The street the robbers were driving along was completely empty, and there were no police there. The bandits started laughing loudly and said that these policemen were so stupid. Lin QQ told the police that they were too late and the robbers had just left with the hostages and money. The policewoman ordered Officer Lee to check the camera footage and determine the make and model of the robbers' car. The officer also asked to inform the traffic police so that they could help them and set up checkpoints on the roads leading out of the city. The girls said that it would be difficult to find the criminals if they left the city, so they had to catch them before the robbers did it. The robbers followed their route, adhering to all traffic rules so as not to stand out from the crowd. One of the thugs asked the boss what they were going to do with this guy later. The boss took off his mask and said that they would bury the poor guy as soon as they left the city. The employee said that she checked the car's license plate, but it turned out to be fake and did not belong to this minivan. The policewoman realized that the fake numbers were an indication that the robbers were not stupid. The girl said that the robbers know exactly how to evade the police and it will be difficult for them to catch them. The policewoman said that even if they changed the numbers, they still wouldn't be able to get through the checkpoint and leave the city. But they might have a backup plan. Li Qing guessed that the police were already looking for the criminals, but it was impossible to tell from their appearance that they were worried, which meant that they had an ace up their sleeve. The car stopped and one of the bandits said that they had arrived at the place. Li Qing looked around the area and tried to understand why they were brought here. The guy tried to understand what was going on here, but couldn't find a clear answer. The driver asked all passengers to hold on and prepare for a sharp jerk. The car began to accelerate, and Li Qing noticed that the driver was speeding too much. The guy thought they would collide with a truck if the driver continued to speed up. The robber's minivan began honking loudly at the truck driver driving in front of them. The frightened An Qing already thought that the robbers wanted to kill them all by colliding with the truck. But it was not just like that, and the truck driver opened the rear luggage compartment lid from his cabin. The minivan driver took good aim to drive inside at high speed, and now the car was able to climb into the cargo compartment of the truck at high speed. One of the criminals turned his attention to Li Qing and said that this frightened boy thought that they would crash into a truck. The guy said he would rip the tape off the hostage's mouth, but another criminal began to warn him against it. The criminal took off the tape and said that the guy risked his life for Lin Chu because she was the CEO of a prestigious company, but this time there would be no reward for his heroism. The guy asked if the criminals knew Chu, and they replied that if they didn't know, they wouldn't have kidnapped her. The boss ordered everyone to shut up and also get out of the car along with the hostages. In the back of the truck, An Qing could be heard trying to say something through the tape. Li Qing apologized to the girl and said that he really didn't understand what the girl was trying to say. The truck driver knocked on the door and informed the boss that they had arrived at the location. The truck was in a mountainous area where a slope into the water could be seen. The car in which the robbers escaped from the bank went straight into the water. The entire group of criminals took the hostages out, and they watched as the car sank. The boss said that the police would not be able to find them now, because the car they escaped in was no longer there. One of the criminals asked again what they would do with the brave young man. The boss said he remembered the shovel that was left in the car, hinting that they were going to bury him now. The criminals said that he would now get a shovel and they would bury the guy near the shore. The truck driver said that there were only rocks around and the criminals would not be able to bury him here. The boss asked what to do and the old driver suggested burying the poor guy on a deserted hill. The frightened An Qing couldn't believe that Li Qing was about to be buried, but the guy himself remained calm. The boss asked Uncle Chen to give them a ride to the nearest place where they could bury the boy, and the driver agreed. The boys got back into the back of the truck and headed to the nearest hill to bury Li Qing. Already in the back of the truck, one of the thugs said that Lin Chu really is a beauty. The two kidnappers said that the girl had a good body, after which they offered to have fun with the girl while there was time. The boss said that if the guy cared about his friend, then it was in his best interest not to do anything with the girl because he and Kay couldn't do that. The boss reminded them that they had to deliver the girl to the villa that night, and after they handed over and received the money, they could have fun with whoever they wanted. Li Qing sat next to An Qing and began to laugh loudly after hearing the robber's words. The boss asked the guy why he was laughing, and reminded him that they were now on their way to bury him. Li Qing replied that he was laughing at the boss, or rather at how stupid a pig he was. The boss couldn't believe his ears for a couple of seconds and decided to ask the hostage again what he said. The criminal asked the driver to drive faster, but the old man said that it was dangerous and there was no need to rush. The guy explained that they had captured this guy because they had no choice. He was unpredictable, and now they were in a hurry to get rid of him. The boss grabbed Li Qing by the collar and said that judging by his provocations, The guy wanted to die as quickly as possible. Li Qing was calm and said that the kidnapper had made 2 major mistakes. The boss asked what mistakes he had made, and Li Qing began to explain to him. The guy hit the criminal in the stomach and said that he shouldn't have come near him. The surprised accomplices began to look at each other and ask how he managed to free himself. Li Qing did not waste any time and began to finish off the boss of the criminals. The guy managed to cope with the first 2 blows, but the last one became the final one for him. The boss of the thugs collapsed onto the floor of the truck, and the surprised An Qing couldn't believe that the repairman had managed to knock out the bandit. The accomplices immediately ran to their leader and discovered that he was unconscious. The mobile phone fell out of Li Qing's hands, right next to his feet. The scumbag quickly found out that it was his phone and asked the guy how he got it. Li Qing said that earlier, when he was talking in the minivan, he managed to borrow a mobile phone. The second criminal asked in surprise whether the guy had already been released at that moment. Li Qing picked up the phone, apologized for dropping it, and thanked him for the opportunity, then added that the police would be here soon. The thugs attacked Li Qing and began calling him a freak and threatening him with death. A scuffle broke out in the back of the truck and the vehicle could be heard shaking. The guy who was sitting in the cockpit said that there were very strange sounds coming from behind. The old man assumed that the long-haired guy couldn't control himself around a beautiful girl. After a small fight, Li Qing managed to tie up all the criminals and tape their mouths shut. The guy said that he was first waiting for the opportunity to deal with the group's boss. Li Qing handed the gun to An Qing and said that he had a task for the girl. The guy asked the girl to help him look after these 3 criminals. An Qing asked Li Qing what he wanted to do, and he replied that he was going to stop the truck. The truck continued to drive at its speed, while Li Qing thought about his plan. The guy opened the door and began to examine the body from the outside to see what he could grab onto. An Qing asked why the guy opened the doors. Was he really going to jump? Li Qing asked what would happen to the girl if he jumped out and ran away from here. The guy said that he himself dragged the girl into all this, so he will take responsibility and return her safe and sound. Li Qing got out of the truck and tried to feel the top of the door to grab onto. The guy was able to grab the top of the door with his hand and began to reach. An Qing was amazed and couldn't believe that a maintenance worker could do such a thing. The guy quickly rose up and turned his body so as not to fly off. Li Qing managed to climb onto the roof, from where he could walk all the way to the cabin. The criminal was able to see something wrong in the mirrors, and this alerted him. The thug asked the driver to wait, and he asked what happened this time. The scumbag said he just saw a shadow on the roof of the truck through the mirror. The guy said that he hadn't imagined it, and added that he would go up now and check everything. And he also asked the old man not to stop. The scumbag came out of the driver's cabin, and Li Qing was already waiting for him from above. The truck picked up speed, and the driver drove as if nothing had happened. The bandit began to examine the roof of the truck in an attempt to find the unwanted guest. The thug had a gun behind his back, but he couldn't notice anything on the roof. Li Qing HID on the other side of the truck and waited for the criminal to return to the cabin. The intruder turned away, and Li Qing felt that now was the best moment. The guy noticed a pistol in the bandit's hands and realized that he needed to disarm him first. Li Qing jumped towards his opponent to knock the gun out of his hand. The guy succeeded, and the gun fell out of the robber's hands onto the roof. The sound of weapons hitting the metal lid of the truck could be heard. The frightened bandit began to turn around and ask who else was here besides him. After a few seconds, the robber was finally able to get a good look at Li Qing and recognized him. The scumbag asked where the boss and the other robbers were. Li Qing asked ironically what the guy himself thought happened to them. The bandit began to put brass knuckles on his hands and said that Li Qing was a very capable guy. Li Qing assessed his opponent and realized that it would not be so easy for him to win because of the brass knuckles. The robber took a stance in front of the guy and prepared for a serious fight. Li Qing said that it might sound strange, but he hadn't been so excited in a long time. The boys exchanged angry glances and began to fight right on the roof of the truck. The bandit decided not to wait for Li Qing and to strike first. The first attempt missed, and Li Qing managed to dodge the blow. The guy also managed to block the second blow. But this bandit was no longer such a simple opponent. The scumbag continued his series of blows to the poor guy. Li Qing tried to stay on his feet after receiving powerful blows from his opponent. After unsuccessful attempts to strike with his fists, the kidnapper began to use his legs. The guy started kicking Li Qing, but he didn't let a single blow reach its target. The bandit said that he overestimated the guy and thought that he had at least some ability. Li Qing told the opponent not to be so arrogant because he did not expect his good kicks. Li Qing explained that although he had been idle for 2 years, he still did not forget to train. The guy wasn't tired at all and told the scumbag to continue. Uncle Chen was surprised that the bandit was checking the roof for so long. The driver didn't want to lose such a large order, and he sincerely rooted for the guy. Despite his fears, the old man continued to drive and did not check anything himself. The scumbag continued to use his legs to break through Li Qing's block, but he was unable to do so. The guy noticed a gun behind him and realized what the kidnapper was up to. Li Xing realized that he couldn't let the bandit get his hands on a firearm. The bandit did not stop, and anger and hatred grew more and more in his eyes. The scumbag began to prepare his leg for another blow, while Li Xing thought about what to do with the gun. The bandit was already flying behind the guy to finish him off with his foot while Li Xing was reaching for his gun. Li Xing still managed to reach his weapon. Li Qing's reaction allowed him to dodge his opponent's powerful blow. But the fight wasn't over yet. The bandit still had enough strength to beat the guy with his hands. Li Xing managed to dodge the thug's fists. The surprised and angry bandit did not understand why he could not hit the guy, and this made him even angrier. Even the truck driver heard the sounds of the fight, despite the noise of the traffic. The old man began to understand that things were not going well for the bandit, and began to worry. Li Xing told the thug to give up if he didn't want to be thrown out. The scumbag didn't want to believe his defeat and looked at Li Xing with resentment. The guy reminded that this truck was heading up the mountain to bury him, which meant that if the bandit fell from here, he would probably die. The scumbag accepted the guy's terms and said that he surrendered. Li Xing asked the boy to go up to the roof and warned him not to even think about trying to do anything. The bandit obeyed the guy and began to climb back onto the roof of the truck. But apparently the scumbag had his own plans for Li Xing. The bandit stabbed the boy in the leg with a hidden knife while climbing onto the roof. Li Xing felt all the pain from the knife, but he did not fall off the truck. The guy managed to push the thug off the truck as he promised. The scumbag pressed his hands to his body and rolled down the mountain after his stunt. Li Xing realized that the thug had a hidden knife and grabbed its handle. The guy, through pain and suffering, tried to pull the knife out of his leg. Li Xing pulled the knife out of his leg and was able to throw it off the truck. While the guy was throwing away the knife, he noticed some strange man on the road. Li Xing began to look at him and realized that he seemed familiar to him. Apparently he had seen him before. It was Mr. Chen. He waved his hand at the guy and said hello. Li Xing realized that this was the same guy driving the truck. The truck was left without a driver, and Li Xing tried to get into the cabin to take control. But the door simply wouldn't open and Li Xing couldn't get inside. Li Xing realized that the old man had used a stick to block the gas pedal and jumped out of the car. The guy said there was no time to stop the truck. It would be very bad if it reached the turn. Li Xing began to bang his fist on the truck's window in the hopes of knocking it out. The glass was very hard, and Li Xing would not be able to break it quickly, and the guy forgot his gun on the roof. The truck continued to travel at great speed, accelerating more and more. Anqing guessed that if the guy had left for so long and the car didn't stop, then he must have had some difficulties. Li Xing realized that they had very little time left and they would crash. There were only a few meters left before the turn, which meant that the truck would soon break through the fence and fly out of the road. But Li Qing's efforts were not in vain, and the guy managed to break through the glass into the driver's cabin. The guy grabbed the steering wheel and began to turn it to the left in order to make the turn. The passengers in the back felt a sharp turn and the tied-up bandits began to roll all over the floor. The frightened Anqing had already begun to feel that they might all die in this truck. But Li Qing seemed to have succeeded, and the truck didn't go off the road. The guy understood that the turn was too sharp and they might not make it in time. The truck entered this turn with difficulty, but Li Qing was not happy about it. The guy realized that with such a sharp turn the trailer could flip over. The truck trailer might not have been able to withstand such a sharp turn. The trailer was saved from overturning by a road barrier that was located along the entire route. Inside the trailer, Anqing and the criminals were thrown around violently. A joyful Li Qing realized that everything was fine now and praised the road barriers. The police arrived at the scene, having been called by the guy while he was still in the minivan. The police ordered the truck to stop immediately. Li Qing was very happy that the police finally decided to come to his call. Police cars surrounded the truck and officers began to get out of the cars. Li Qing asked why the police were so slow, since the robbers had fled and they had only just arrived. But to Li Qing's surprise, he was handcuffed as he tried to stop the truck. The guy asked why he was being arrested, and the policeman replied that he was the robber. The girl who interrogated the guy immediately recognized him and said that it was him. The girl said that she knew that the guy was a scoundrel, but she didn't expect that he would rob a bank the day after he left the police station. Li Qing started shouting that the police were wrong and that he was not a robber. The policeman reported to the captain that they had found a hostage, 3 more robbers and a lot of stolen money. The captain said that all the evidence was there, after which she ordered the guy to be taken to the police station. Anqing saw the guy being handcuffed and couldn't just watch. The girl shouted Li Qing's name and ran towards him. Anqing asked the police what they were doing and asked them to release the boy immediately. Anqing, worried, hugged the boy and asked if he was okay after that. The girl said that the cops arrested the wrong person, and Li Qing is a good guy. If he hadn't called the police, they wouldn't have come. Anqing told the captain that she couldn't even tell the difference between good and evil, so she couldn't be a police officer. Anqing demanded that the police officers hurry up and free the boy. Li Qing began to fall right in Anqing's arms and the girl began to ask what was wrong with him. The policeman said that the guy was badly hurt and his legs were covered to her lips and blew on it carefully. Already cooled, Lin tries to feed the patient, bringing it closer. The guy is very embarrassed, and the girl does not understand what she did wrong and why he has such an expression on his face. He turns to his mistress and says that she should not do such a thing. Miss is very upset by his words, because she honored Vienna in front of him. Tears appear in her eyes. The already frightened guy asks what he did wrong. Lin takes Li Qing's palm, which is completely bandaged. It turns out that all of his fingers were broken and he has a serious leg injury. She was very grateful for both him and An Qing's salvation, yet they had stood up to protect her back then. The defense attorney replies that the main thing is that everyone remained safe and sound. The police caught the criminals and now there is no need to worry. Indeed, the girl says with a wary look when the conversation turns to the police. After this, becoming furious, she tells that Captain Tan mistook him for a robber and arrested him. And out of anger, she squeezes her hand so hard that it hurts the guy. Miss believes that it was because of her that he lost consciousness and there was a lot of blood. Li Qing justifies the policewoman by saying that it was an unusual situation, but the girl is difficult to convince and she wants to teach her a lesson. The girl who was watching from behind the door shows herself, making sounds to be noticed. Miss Lin didn't expect there to be anyone there, so she was surprised and pulled the guy's hand again. She approached Captain Tan and said that she was just talking about her. The policewoman had a serious face and in fact she came to apologize. But Miss Lin's apology is not enough. If it weren't for her, Li Qing would have been fine. And if he had reacted later, everything could have ended badly. The main character asks the lady to let the captain in, because she wanted to tell him something. She looks at him with displeasure but agrees. After all, the girl personally came to visit the guy. As she leaves, Miss Lin warns her not to lay a finger on him, but she still has things to do, so she will leave first. Warm weather, a large building with many windows. After all, it is a new modern hospital and that is where the hero is located. A policewoman enters the room and addresses the guy by name, who in turn tells her to continue the conversation. The girl sincerely asks for forgiveness, but still keeps a serious face. Then she puts her hand in her pocket and tries to find something. The guy looks and doesn't understand what she's doing. Captain Tan takes out a letter containing an apology from her personally. In it, she expressed her deepest regrets for that incident, so Li Qing accepts it. He asks the policewoman to sit down because she looks tense, and she appears to be following orders and agrees. She sits down next to him, but the guy remains silent. Also after this, the girl asks to read the letter right now. His answer is positive. Opening it, he thinks that there are a lot of words there and wonders what she wrote there. The girl, as if remembering something, looks at him with an excited look. She forgot that his arms were broken and decided to take the letter and read it herself. Taking it carefully in her hands with an important face, she begins to read. She starts reading so loudly that even the nurses behind the door can hear her voice. The guy is shocked by this. He turns to Captain Tan, trying to shout over her so that she would hear and stop. Taking it with a rude gesture, he says that there is no need to read it, and he forgives her. She looks at him with bewilderment and does not believe whether this is true, and then gratefully says that he has a big heart. She sits silently and smiles, and Li Qing wonders why she doesn't leave and how long she will sit here. Again, she turns to the poor protagonist, who already thinks that she is going to leave. But it turns out that no, the policewoman is going to massage his legs, and he, shocked by such a proposal, asks again. She abruptly removes the blanket from his feet, and he makes an incomprehensible sound from surprise and embarrassment. Li Qing admits that the massage is good and thanks the girl, and she asks if it hurts in that place. He answers that it is a little. Afterwards, the captain suggests that it's kidney problems, and he in turn denies it. Switching the subject, the guy says that his feet stink because he hasn't washed them since being hospitalized. The policewoman shakes her head and says not to worry about her and that this is not true at all. It turns out that the hospital is surrounded by trees and an outdoor recreation area. After some time, the guy moves the blanket away and is about to get up. A puzzled Captain Tan asks him to stop because the doctor said he can't go up. The main character tries to calm her down and says that he is just going to go to the toilet. Again, she is looking for something and doing strange things, this time under the bed. And so, the policewoman takes out a strange jar and says that it is a convenient hygienic urinal. She asks to use it for the need, but the guy in complete shock remains silent. He doesn't listen to the girl and continues to stand up, saying that there is nothing scary about it. A real man can't stand a test like this bottle. And again, the girl stops him with a sharp movement, grabbing him by the shoulder. Captain Tan says she has complete confidence in his resolve, but he must follow the doctor's orders. She asks him not to worry because she took the whole day off to take care of him. She laid him on the bed and covered him with a blanket, demanding that he leave the rest to her. Once again, he took out and showed the shiny urinal, assuring that it is very convenient and hygienic. She puts him under the blanket, and poor Li Qing continues to look at her in embarrassment. He lets out a gasp of surprise and incomprehension, but the girl continues to do something. He asks the captain to just leave him there and he will do everything himself from now on. The policewoman insists that he cannot do without help. She asks to warn him when the device is in the right position. She remembers that he is not allowed to move his hands and then apologizes for the intrusion. The guy screams in confusion, not understanding the actions of the girl, who continues to do something. He begs her to stop, but it's too late, and they've disturbed the nurse again. Window, warm day, and view of the neighboring building. Next to it there is a beautiful plant. The guy has tears streaming down his eyes. He is sad because he can't do anything, and the girl continues to mock him. Worriedly, she asks if he can handle it, and if he just... An angry Li Qing says that he is fine, and she is not saying this on purpose, right? Bamboo, a stream that flows down and turns into a small puddle. The main character finds this very embarrassing. The sound is so loud, he needs to come up with something to hide it. He starts to speak unintelligibly, and the surprised policewoman does not understand what is happening. The guy decided to hum a song about summer and how quickly it passed. The girl picks it up on the fly and also starts singing a song, only this time a different one about a cold wind and a green flower. Our hero didn't like her, so why did she choose her? It's a nice day, the sun is warm, there are green trees and birds chirping outside. Our Li Qing's sister came to visit him, because Miss Lin said that he woke up. Captain Tan says hello while the sad protagonist lies hurt on the bed. He is pleased to see a new visitor and suggests that the policewoman go first. Sister Hua came to take care of him, so there was nothing to worry about, and she could finally have a good rest. Then the policewoman leaves and waves goodbye, but still says that she will return to visit him. The frightened protagonist already thinks that it's time to change hospitals, otherwise they'll drive him to the grave. Hua asks what's wrong with him since he looks terrible. There's a long sigh, and Li Qing replies that it's a long story. A relative opens the lid of the pot she brought, and it turns out she cooked porridge. The main entrance to the hospital looks good enough. What will happen next inside? The guy is fed with a spoon. He can finally eat normally with appetite and without embarrassment, and here is the last spoon. His sister brought something else for him. She rummages through her bag to find it. She takes out a plush toy. Li Qing always takes it with him, so she wanted to please him. Not knowing what to say, he decided to remain silent, but somehow this doll was very similar to him. Since Hua forgot to bring him a change of clothes, she decides to go back, saying that if he needs anything, he called the nurse. The boy flops down on the pillow and decides to go to sleep while the doll lies next to him. At some point he decides to turn to her. He is silent, looking at her. Suddenly the main character throws a small plush copy of himself onto the floor, after which he turns to the other side, and the doll continues to lie on the floor. A few days later at the same hospital at the main entrance, an unknown woman asks a nurse how to get to Ward 307, and she tells her how to get there. It turns out that it is Anqing. She thanks the worker and moves on. The nurse's thoughts indicate that she is very elegant and beautiful. Reaching the door that they smeared on her, she is about to enter. Opening the door, she greets him and asks if Li Qing is there. There is silence in the room, and there are 4 guys there who look like gangsters. One of them licks his lips. He is delighted and says that people like her are his type. The woman apologizes and is about to leave, realizing that she is in the wrong room. Even in the protagonist's room, noise, screams, and murmurs can be heard coming from far away. Li Qing begins to frown, but still tries to ignore it and continues sleeping. Anqing was being followed. Those guys followed her. They are trying to persuade her to join them and give her number. From the next door comes shouts that they are making too much noise and should be quieter. It turns out that it was Li Qing's voice, yet together they were able to wake him up. He is very irritated because his neighbors who came yesterday are very disturbing. Even though the nurse reprimanded them, he will not be able to sleep. Suddenly, one of those who asked for the secretary's phone number bursts into his room. Walking in with a displeased face, he asks if her boyfriend is there. The main character is confused about what is happening, and then he and the gangster make eye contact. He looks at him mockingly and thinks that he overestimated our guy. His self-esteem says that Li Qing looks like a useless and spineless guy, and he is no match for me, Junxiu. Anqing enters the main character's room and says that she came to visit him. The guy understands that it was about her. She sits down next to him and addresses him as if he were a dear person, complaining that they are pestering her. The gangster looks at her with a dissatisfied and angry look, wondering why this cute girl is next to such a loser. Li Qing calms the girl down so that she doesn't worry. Afterwards, he turns to Junxiu and says that he is her boyfriend and he should leave, because Anqing wants to stay with him. The gangster puts his hand on his shoulder, but it's clear from the guy's face that he doesn't like it. Junxiu offers a lucrative deal. Give the girl to him, and he will pay a good sum for it. The indignant girl says how can he think that everything can be bought with money, and her boyfriend will never agree to this. With an unperturbed face, the protagonist agrees to this deal. On King is very unhappy about this, and the guy, in turn, with a satisfied face, says that he is waiting for his cash. The gangster is even more convinced that anyone cares more about money than about people, and that he is really very simple. It seems that the protagonist loves money very much. Junshu asks him how much he wants. Next answer, he expects 5 million in cash, no more, no less. With a serious face, Junshu asks again if this is the exact amount. But after some thought, he agrees. Joyfully, he runs, withdraws money, and asks to wait a little while because the bank is not far away, shouting from the other end that he would soon return to her. The main thing was to wait for him. At this time, the manager thinks, because the main character is not a coward, and most likely, he did this on purpose to teach him a lesson. Li Qing turns to Enqing saying that they don't have much time. She needs help to pack her things and leave for another hospital as soon as possible before he returns. And they need to hurry, because the bank is not that close. The entrance to the bank looks ordinary, which is exactly where our lover should go. A happy guy walks out of a bank humming a song, while in the background a female employee thanks him for visiting the bank. Someone suddenly grabs him by the shoulder and apologizes, asking him to stop. To the guy's surprise, they are police officers, and someone has informed him that he is involved in human trafficking and is carrying a large amount of money. Now he has to go to the police station. White clothes, a wheelchair. It looks like they managed to get ready. Anqing found a hospital to move him to a more hidden room where they couldn't get to him. The girl emphasizes that he is always so unusual. Who is he really? Li Qing replies that he is just an employee of the company. But the girl knows that he understood what she meant. The guy starts to philosophize, asking which personality is more important. A worker, a doctor, or a rich man. He is he, and no one else. After much conversation, it turns out that they have already reached their destination. In fact, Anqing's original intention was to thank him for saving her and apologize for causing trouble at the hospital. With a smile on his face, he tells her not to worry and that it is normal for a sweet lady like her to find herself in situations like this. The girl is very embarrassed by such words, because she did not expect such words. Even a blush appears on her cheeks. Since things turned out this way, she decides to say goodbye and leave so as not to cause discomfort. He watches her go in a good mood and waves his hand after her. Anqing, walking out the door, doesn't understand what's wrong with her. Her heart is beating very fast. Ever since Li Qing saved her, the feelings in her heart had become very difficult to describe. No matter where, no matter what, she sees him. Even a green palm tree in a pot reminds her of him. This beautiful face was imprinted in the girl's heart. Could it be that she fell in love? She admits defeat because she never thought she could fall in love with someone. The protagonist has been watching her for a long time and now does not know what the manager is doing, but apparently should not interfere. Big city, big houses, and warm morning. Somewhere around here you can find the office where he worked. He joyfully calls to his sister and informs her that he has finally returned home. Hua asks why he came so early. He shouldn't have been discharged yet, and asks him to give him his bag. It turns out that it wasn't he who decided so, but the doctor who allowed him to be discharged, adding that he recovered very quickly. Well, that's what the matter is. Then the boy should rest at home for a couple more days and get back to work. Beautiful buildings and a cloudless sky lift the spirits. Leaving the store with bags and walking along the streets, he hears the sounds of music. While searching, he stumbles upon some establishment and finds out where these sounds are coming from. Deciding to go in, he sees another guy who greets him and asks if he would like something to drink. Li Qing asks if he can find out who the singer of this song is. The young bartender says with a slight smile that he has good taste. Taking out the cover with the beautiful face of the performer, he replies that this is the original of the song, and it is very valuable. Long dark hair falling on her shoulders and back. The most important difference in the picture is the butterfly tears. This is a song by the most popular singer in China, Mu Zhou'er, and it is a limited edition. It turns out that this is her debut album, a very valuable copy. The bartender notices that his customer is very serious and hopes that he is not here to make a scene. With a straight face, the guy asks if he can sell the album. He declines, saying it's one of his favorite albums. Holding out a black card, he offers 200,000 to buy it. The surprised blonde guy wonders what such a person is doing here. The bartender doesn't like this offer. He's a black card holder and he's only offering 200,000. Doesn't that make him stingy? The main character asks again. If so, how much does he want? What amount can satisfy him? The guy who works in the store starts counting. Once he bought it for 500 and a year has passed. Finally, in conclusion, it comes out. 5 million is quite a large sum, but he is not going to give away his favorite thing just like that. Li Qing is not happy with this proposal. After all, it is too much. The bartender insists, saying that 5 million is still cheap for such a thing, and this is his final word, agree or leave. As he leaves, he sighs and thinks that he must accept reality now. It will no longer be on his side. Buying her album will make him more depressed. Li Qing becomes even sadder than before. Someone behind him shouts his name, and Li Qing turns towards the familiar voice. This is In Qing. She has been looking for him for half a day, because Miss Lin asked her to bring him to the office. The puzzled guy asks if she wants him to come to work. The manager replies that she did not go into details, and if he can, it would be advisable to go. He agrees, but first asks for a ride home, because he needs to take the food he bought. Here is the building where Miss Lin is located, incredibly large, where it is difficult to even find the top. Arriving there, the manager says that she has some business, and he must go to the lady's office. The elevator doors he rode up took him to the right place. When he came out and saw a lot of men in black suits, he was again puzzled. He tries to slip past the muscular guys, asking them to let him pass. The protagonist wonders why there are so many people surrounding Miss Lin's office. Approaching the lady's door, he makes his presence known, saying that he has just arrived. Before he could enter, someone grabbed him by the wrist, preventing him from going in. An unknown man with blue hair directs a guy to stand at the front of the line for an interview, to which Li Qing replies that he works here and hasn't come here for work in the first place. Miss Lin's voice comes from behind the door, asking him to come in. The girl apologizes for calling him when he is on vacation. At first, she wanted to introduce our hero to some person. Uncle Long Wu is her father's main bodyguard, and now he personally protects the lady. The second person introduced is Uncle Long's son, Long Jie, who calls Li Qing that same pervert when he sees him. Since everyone is gathered, Miss Lin suggests going to the gym. An incredible amount of brand new and empty exercise machines surround him, and in the middle there is a large arena. The lady claims that she may get into danger later and wants the protagonist to help her choose bodyguards. Li Qing again thinks that she wants to make him her bodyguard again. But in any case, he is not going to agree. Well, to avoid wasting time on chatter, we need to call people from outside right now. Many men line up according to their numbers, and then they have to introduce themselves one by one. The first was San, who studied martial arts for 10 years and won the national championship. The judges thought he was strong to get all the way there, so they decided to test him. Before the competition, he asks Longji to be gentle with him. Well, it's time to begin. Having entered the ring, the signal sounded to begin sparring. San pounces on Longji with shouts, underestimating his opponent. With one wave of his hand, Longji defeats the brute and emerges victorious from the battle. Long Wu emphasizes that in reality he is a weakling, even though he looks impressive, and is the next participant's testament. The second contestant confesses his love at first sight to Chu Chu, asking her to marry him and promising that he will make her happy. Longji tells the guy to shut up and asks how dare he suggest such a thing to the lady. He is carried away for such behavior, but the participant still shouts after him that he incredibly loves and will always love Miss Lin. The third participant shows his skills in singing. He also gets down on his knees, screaming out songlines that even if he dies, he will love. A dissatisfied Longji asks him to stop, saying that there is not even any emotion in this song. And what the hell is he singing for? He didn't come here for Eurovision. They ask in an angry voice to call the next participant. Ms. Lin points out that each candidate has many talents, but they cannot be merciful to the candidates. The next person is a familiar face. His name is Ho Yan. He has been working as a bodyguard for 3 years. Although he can't tell much about himself, he can show his strength. The girl says that he looks quite decent. Apparently she liked him. Uncle asks with a serious face if he really wants to show his strength. If so, then Hai climbs into the ring. Now our judge is fighting a mysterious guy with blue hair. Hao Yan gives him the advantage by allowing him to strike first, and says that he won't do much damage. Longja notices that he is quite impudent and has a bad temper. Well, now he is preparing for an attack, not forgetting to warn that he will knock out all the front teeth. His evil look and smooth hand movements make him look very serious. However, Hao easily blocks the opponent's powerful blow, preventing it from breaking through his defense. Then a sudden and strong grip on the judge's arm prevents him from getting out. A quick jerk to the side and it is impossible to do anything. Longji opens up completely and is defeated in one hit. The uncle is surprised by this turn of events, because his son, although young, is quite skilled. The young judge underestimated his opponent and lost, losing consciousness. Hao Yan looks at the man lying at his feet with a mocking expression. His arrogant look speaks for itself. His opponent was too weak. Miss Doe calls the infirmary and asks for people to be sent, and at that moment Uncle says that he was too cruel. Hao Yan asks what he should have done in this situation. In a real fight there is no room for pity. He answers his own question. He also wonders why the protagonist is here when he sees him sleeping. Miss Lin makes a remark that after all, it was not a real fight, and that it should have been softer. Hao disagrees, pointing out that if he hadn't hit him, he would have lost his teeth, and asks if she thinks the same. Miss Lin wants to know Uncle's opinion on this matter, but his power cannot be denied. But despite this, he beat Long Wu, so he needs to somehow make sure of the choice. Long Wu looks at the sleeping Li Qing and says that she will appreciate his skills and wants him to become the head of the bodyguards. After that, he points to him and says that they need to determine who is stronger through competition. If Ho wins, he will become the head of the bodyguards after his uncle. Hao mockingly says they want to get him out quickly, and he's happy to agree. The girl will be the poor sleeping guy who fell asleep right in the middle of the selection. Still drooling on the table, he mutters incomprehensible words under his breath. Miss tells him to wake up, and he finally has a job. That is, sparring with Hao to see how good he is at being around her. The guy asks the lady again if she really wants him to win some repairman. Li Qing agrees with this. They say he is right. But Miss Lin at this time looks at him with a dissatisfied look. After moving away a bit, she tells him to help her find a good man like him. After that, the girl will not ask to become a bodyguard. Since this is the case, Li Qing decides to agree to such a proposal, and says that he will do his best. Hao Yan thinks, perhaps despite the fact that he is just a worker, he still has plenty of strength. The protagonist asks what he is waiting for, and warns that he will not be lenient. Then at the very beginning, he makes a sharp lunge with his leg. It looks like he has the mood now. The opponent dodges such a sudden blow, but loses his balance. Red drops of blood slowly flow from the wound on his cheek. He was very angry that his beautiful face was scratched. He attacks the guy, threatening to beat him to death. Are these words true? He then strikes back at him, leaving fresh wounds on his neck. The opponent grabs the shoulder, bleeding it with his hand. But the guy is not so simple, so he twists his finger on his hand with a crack. Huo Yan hits hard, but hits his arm. Even this blow was blocked by Li Qing. Continuing his series of attacks, he tries to break through with his legs, but he fails. Already tired, Huo stops to catch his breath. Miss Lin remarks that it looks like Li Qing is losing, but Uncle denies it. Although it looks like Hao Yan's attack hit him, all the blows were blocked. That may be so, but the situation is heating up and the battle shows no sign of ending. But if Li Qing only defends himself, he won't win. Why not strike back? One thing is for sure, when you hit, you lose a lot of energy. Li Qing is waiting for the right moment. Although Hao Yan's attacks are unsuccessful, he still has plenty of energy. And at some point, weakness will show itself. This will be the only chance that Li Qing can take advantage of. Then he will be able to win with one strong and sweeping blow. Having relaxed his vigilance, Huo Yan does not notice the protagonist's cyber movement and becomes confused. Li Qing tries to take advantage of this opportunity and moves his torso forward to strike. But he slipped past and missed, only slightly touching the guy. Confused about what was happening, Huo Yan silently prepared his hand to strike. And here is a crushing blow to the head. Has the main character really lost now? Yes, he was knocked out. How could he have so stupidly missed his chance to win? Now the winner has a stony face. Apparently he is unhappy with this development of events. Uncle and Miss Lin also supported his silence, because there were many hopes. Li Qing is asked to get up, but he pretends that he has been knocked out and is unable to do so. Well, he won, and now the bodyguard's position rightfully belongs to him. Uncle is the first to ask what Miss Lin thinks about this and what they should do. But the guy interrupts and asks if this company is really trustworthy. And our main character writes in blood in the background that he is a murderer. Miss Lin has no choice but to accept him for this position since there are no other suitable people. Here comes Li Qing, complaining that he knocked him out. Is he really better than our guy? Everyone looks at him angrily and remains silent, very outraged by his behavior. Coming out into the corridor, where there were many expensive paintings, he continued on. Huo Yan caught up with him and asked him to wait a bit. The protagonist was surprised. What did he want? He thanks for the opportunity to take over as leader and promises not to be angry anymore about his face being scratched. Li Qing replies that he does not need gratitude and simply does not wish to participate in this. It is better for an ambitious person to take this position. As he leaves, he says goodbye and warns Hao Yan to protect his mistress and not make her regret his choice. Now, left alone with himself, the winner sets his sights on making Li Qing a real loser, since this was just a show. He walks up to the elevator and presses the down button to finally go home. Entering there, he meets Manager Liu. They haven't seen each other for a long time. She indignantly asks why he is still in the company because she told him to leave there. The protagonist thanks for the concern, but at the moment he is not going to leave work. The girl is unhappy with the answer. The guy turns away and waits for his floor, and the girl in turn watches him closely. Coming up, he pokes his finger at the guy's back, telling him to turn around. He asks what is it, and she waits for the conversation to continue. Will he really not say anything? He pretends not to understand Manager Liu, to which he receives a compliment from her. Suddenly the elevator stops and the heroes become confused. The lamp starts to flash and make scary sounds. What happened? Bam, and the girl look up, not yet realizing what happened in the elevator. They show us why the elevator broke down. It turns out that someone spilled water. It was an elderly man. Next time he is asked to be careful because this panel is responsible for the elevator. Since the elevator at number 4 is broken, they ask that someone be sent there. Manager Leo sat down on the floor in fear when the guy tried to say something, but she didn't listen to him. In her thoughts, the girl tried to calm herself down and not think about the bad, assuring herself that everything would be fine. Heavy sighs, sweat on her face, fear. She couldn't calm her fear. Li Qing tries to approach her and find out what is going on, not understanding why she is silent. She passed out from shock. The main character was very worried about the girl. A worker frees them, and the guy immediately asks to call a doctor quickly. It turns out that she has fainted and is not breathing. Something needs to be done quickly. The guy starts giving the girl a direct heart massage, trying to bring her to her senses, after which he leans closer to her body and performs artificial respiration. The worried guy gets up and doesn't understand whether his actions helped or not. Thank God the girl regained consciousness and was able to cough. Li Qing already thought that she had died. But no. The only one who would die today was him. Now the girl doesn't like him. She says that this problem has been going on since childhood, and despite the fact that he kissed her, the girl is grateful. Anqing, watching from the corner, is upset that Li Qing kissed someone. How dare Manager Lo take advantage of her dear Li Qing? She hands over some kind of ticket as a token of gratitude for saving her. It turns out that this is a pass to a lingerie show. Many begged her for such a chance. Now he is the lucky one. The guy is just incredibly happy about this news, and immediately thinks about what he might see there. The main character wants him and calls the girl a true friend. She reminds him to remember her kindness. Anqing knows that there will be a lot of beautiful girls at this show, and Li Qing will definitely be tempted by them. Li Qing's office, where he works and rests until he is called on another mission. He also has 2 colleagues, and they all look at one point in surprise. Someone came to him, he probably wants something. The guy is also very interested in this. It was Anqing who suggested going out to dinner together that evening. The meeting is arranged downstairs after work, to which the guy agrees. The guy with red hair is very surprised, so much so that he can't even say anything. The manager leaves, saying goodbye, and the guy says the same thing in response. They will meet soon. His friend at work asks what it was, but even the main character has no answer. They call this woman an evil demon, and such behavior seems very suspicious to them. Li Qing asks not to scare him. She is not that scary. So they came to the restaurant. It is quite cozy and surrounded by green palm trees. Sitting at the table, opposite each other, the guy asks what the manager wanted to say. She asks if he can feel what has been happening to him lately. He replies that he hasn't been very lucky lately, because a lot of problems have happened in a short time. Anqing warns that his heart has a black aura, which means something bad will happen soon. The main character, surprised by this turn of events, now thinks that she is a fortune teller, but she denies it and says that she is more powerful than them. The girl asks to give her her right hand to tell fortunes. Without hesitation, Li Qing holds it out. The prediction is as follows. Lifelines appear and disappear. They are very full, especially when he was younger. The lifeline intersects with the love line, and this is very dangerous. If Anqing is not mistaken, he will go to the southeast next week to do something. The stunned guy is surprised that she was able to predict something like this. The girl met a man in a similar situation, and out of kindness she advised him. But that man didn't believe Anqing, and guess what happened to him? The main character asks what happened and how events developed. The manager's answer turns out to be very scary. When the man approached the bus, it broke and cut his legs in half. The guy emphasizes that this is very terrible and asks for advice on what he should do. Anqing replies that he shouldn't go to the southeast next week. He should go to work and home as usual, then nothing will happen. Li Qing thanks for the advice and promises not to go anywhere during these dangerous days. As they leave the restaurant, they say goodbye and wave to each other, saying that they will meet tomorrow. Even though he is warned not to go, the main character still plans to go there. There's a lingerie show going on there, and he can't miss it. He's willing to take a risk for these beauties. A few days later, we are shown the events in Li Qing's office. Manager Anne comes there and asks where the main character went. Those who are there respond that he took the day off today and said that he went into town for a show. The girl is very unhappy that she was lied to and how he could go there despite her warning. Miss Lin's room is beautiful and huge, and even has a large swimming pool. There we meet Manager Liu and the lady herself, who asks if she was able to pass the ticket to Li Qing, to which she receives a positive answer. That's great. The lady is sure that if he comes, nothing bad will happen. Uncle Long Wu asks why she needs him. Besides the fact that he lost to Ho Yan, he is also against being a bodyguard. If he's not faithful to his mistress, then why can't she give up the guy? Li Qing is a talented person, and Miss Lin does not want to lose him. This show is important for the company to enter the international market, and everything must go smoothly. The girl asks to take care of her father because she is worried about the recent incident. The uncle is doing everything possible for this. The room where our main character and his sister used to work. A man offers a deal to Hua's sister, but she refuses and asks the man to leave. The main character appears and warns that he is going to the city by train, so there is no need to cook. The girl now has less trouble, and she simply agrees, after which she wishes him luck. Li Qing notices the customer and asks if he needs help, But the girl denies it. In her opinion, it is a small problem. The sky is clear and the weather is warm. Today should be a nice day. The guy is very pleased with the opportunity to admire beautiful women. The hero, smiling, is already getting ready to go to his long-awaited beautiful models. He laughs so loudly in anticipation that even passers-by turn around. At the place, he meets manager Liu, who is glad that the guy actually came. She says that his task for today is to make sure that everything goes according to plan behind the scenes. Li Heng refuses. He is very busy and needs to fully enjoy the show. The girl replies that he is too naive and does not seem to understand anything. Where does he think the girls will be before they go on stage? And if he follows her, then the main character's dreams of seeing beautiful girls will be replaced by reality. Li Qing calls her a true friend and rushes to go backstage. When he walks in, all he sees is a bunch of guys working hard, deciding to ask again if this was really the backstage area they promised to take him to. The only beauties here are muscular men with stubble and beards. Only sweaty workers change clothes here because of the heat, and not for a fashion show. The main character starts to angrily yell at the manager, because instead of beauties they show this. The girl replies that he is in too much of a hurry, and the repairs should be finished in a few days, and then the show will take place. But the guy insists that it should be today, because that's what it says on the ticket. It turns out that this was invented especially for him so that he would come a few days earlier. Now Li Qing hates this girl because she played with his feelings. Manager Liu says he is being too dramatic and that she has to attend a party with models today. Then she promises to take our guy there so that he won't be so sad. She also lures him by saying that she will get the number of someone he really likes. But there is one condition. Li Qing will have to guard her for these few days. The guy is too tempted by such offers and quickly agrees to be a protector. Since it is already late, the girl takes him to the hotel where she is staying. Leaving the building where the show would later be held, they headed out onto the street. There we meet a white car. It is quite roomy and is considered new. Miss Lin was lent it by manager Liu, and she says it looks pretty cool. Of course, how could it be otherwise? Here they are almost at their destination. Manager Liu asks how he likes the room, since Miss Lin chose it specially. It's amazing, nothing more to say. The girl is about to go to bed, so she asks Li Qing to have fun alone and not disturb her. The main character was forced to be a bodyguard again. Why does this continue? It's deep night, and outside the window you can see the full moon and birds flying past. The guy is sleeping, but sweat appears on his face. He is dreaming about something. This girl who calls him by name, what does she want? An incredibly beautiful maiden blinds the main character, who wonders who she is. Turning to face him, she asks if he doesn't remember her. Zhou Er. This is the girl who was featured in the limited edition album. She says he looks like he's made a lot of new friends. Although this is not surprising, he has a heart of gold, which attracts many people. But she begins to squeeze the place where Li Qing's heart should be. Taking it out, she reveals a completely broken heart crumbling into little pieces. When dropped with a crash, it completely loses its shape and only fragments remain. After which she apologizes for not holding on. What was the main character feeling at that moment? He tried to hold on until the last. Frowning, he obviously didn't like this dream. Pushing the blanket aside with a sharp movement, the guy sits down on his bed. The morning started quite early. At 5 o'clock in the morning, most people are still asleep at that time. While he goes for a run, he continues to think about her more and more and does not understand why he cannot forget. Li Qing tells himself to stop behaving like this, because he won't be able to cross paths with her again. The early morning is beautiful. Only the sunrise is visible ahead, towards which the hero strives. The protagonist's mood improved after jogging, even though he was tired. From afar, one can hear a man asking for some money. He hasn't eaten for several days. This is what a little boy begged from a vendor at a small stall. But he chased him away. The woman standing nearby was unhappy. Who knows, maybe he'll stain her things. The child has not earned a penny. If he returns home, he will be beaten. The main character comes up and offers to buy him some kind of bun. He refuses, saying that he needs money more than food. Feeling sorry for him, the boy puts a small amount of money on his plate. The seller warns that this boy does not take food if it is offered to him. All he needs is money, so there's no point in spending money on him until he gets what he wants. He can't leave. Li Qing wonders why he is begging. It would be better to take him to the orphanage. To which the seller replies that he does not follow people, and that this is a useless undertaking. Even if someone insists, he will still come back. Especially since his life may become worse when he comes back. The main character does not understand how these actions can make things worse. The man running the stall can't tell us anything more, and it would be better for him to stop asking questions. With a serious face, Li Qing replies that he is not afraid, and is ready to listen to everything to the end. But the seller is afraid of losing his business, so the guy had better stop causing him problems. The main character thinks why he looks so scared. It all looks suspicious. There's a fight going on nearby. An unknown guy raises his voice and says that the nobody has become too bold. How dare a little girl run away from him, and even if she wants to, she can't. If she wants to live, let her obey. The child is in so much pain that tears come to her eyes. She calls him a bad boy. He threatens her that if she starts screaming again, the stranger will strangle her. Several more poor children stand on the street and beg for money. The rapist's accomplice appears and says that they have earned enough and that 2 children together bring in much more money and that they can be given a little more food as a reward. Another unknown person says that there is no point in giving more. That way they will bring even more money. Well, the smoke break is over. It's time for them to go back. An abandoned place surrounded by plants to keep prying eyes away where bandits gather. 3 people standing near the children ask them to give them the money they collected today. The first to approach is the boy who was near the stall. The uncle asks why he collected so little. With a trembling voice, the kid tries to answer something. But he doesn't have time. They push him away with their foot, shouting that he's useless and fooling everyone. The accomplice asks to be softer with him. He is still small. The guy cries bitter tears, but he tried. To which he receives the answer that they must be merciless. Otherwise, we ourselves will be the ones who suffer. The protagonist pursued to find their shelter. He heard the whole conversation. The last words that were that they would return here in the evening. Here is their base where they abuse children. What is their plan of action now? The children were brought in a car, and now they are telling them to get out of there. This is their so-called home. One of the kids named Shia can't get out of the car. One of the bandits is worried that something might have happened to him. But they tell him not to pay attention and leave him. He is probably pretending. Somewhere here in the alleys is their lair, but where could it be? Lee Kin refrained from fighting and pursued for a long time. But there were so many twists and turns that he lost them. The protagonist can't tell the police, otherwise they'll raise the alarm. It would be bad if they were still holding the children. Not very far away, the guy notices an elderly grandmother and decides to approach her. He asks if she knows a family in this village that has many children. The woman replies curtly and unkindly that she doesn't know. Then he approaches another person in that city and asks him to wait so he can ask something. And once again he is convinced that people in this place are very cold towards others. Someone rudely throws some terrible porridge into the children's plate and tells them to eat it. A fat woman complains that she hangs around here all day and cooks, and doesn't even have time for her boyfriend. The children are so hungry that they don't care what they eat, so they happily eat whatever they have. The little brother passes the food to another boy named Guan, who thanks him. Unlike the poor, Manager Liu serves steak that is cooked much better than before. She notices that Li Qing is missing and wonders where he could have gone so early. One of the boys becomes very ill and unable to bear it, he vomits. The woman is angry. How dare he tear her food apart and threatens to bury him alive. The children are hunched over. Their stomachs are hurting badly, most likely from spoiled and improper cooking. A fat woman goes to her older brother to tell him the news. One of the children looks sick and he should go and have a look at him. The man says that he will visit the child and she can rest when she finishes cooking. But the most important thing is not to tell the mother about this. The plump woman speaks her thoughts out loud. She is not sure whether to worry about the boy. He will not die just like that. The old lady, who is their mother, asks what she muttered. She emphasizes that the girl has a guilty look, and she must tell about what happened. She brushes it off by saying that one child just has an upset stomach and nothing more serious. It's already noon and the main character still can't find the children. Are they really here? The woman decides that something is wrong and goes to check out the situation herself. Coming to the door, she asks the kids whether something bad happened to them or not. The girl replies that Brother Jia is not feeling well and some think he is dying, begging for help. At the table of delicious food, a conversation begins about how the villain is not a doctor, and there is no point in questioning him. The elderly lady was told to stay at home and not think about business and was asked to come back, because she had nothing to do with it. She does not agree that if the child dies, it will be murder. She is asked not to worry, because no one will know about it even if something like this happens. Jai's stomach is swollen, and the children around him are very worried about their little brother. The boy lies unconscious, covered in bruises and breathing heavily. He even has barely noticeable tears. The oldest one makes a remark that it is impossible to continue like this, and that an escape plan needs to be thought out. After some time, the plan was ready to be implemented. One of the villains is called for help. Apparently they are in trouble. The guy comes up and threatens that if they scream, they will be beaten. But it turns out that Ji is not breathing. The guy is unhappy with this inconvenience, and he decides to go in and take a look. In the next frame, we see a grandmother asking her to wait for a young man. Li Qing turns around and asks what she wanted to tell him. The villain is hit with a rusty bucket and hit right on the head. The kids gave him a good beating and now they are happy with their work. The adult started bleeding. He started swearing and saying how much pain it was. The children run ahead and ask the youngest to hold on tight. The villain shouts after them that they are already dead. Now they have reached the exit. Did they really manage to escape? Frightened, they meet a man outside the door. Now the children are surrounded. The granny tells the main character that she knows where the child he saw is. Will Li Qing be able to get to the children in time, or will they be caught? Yuna is asked to catch them quickly. If they escape, the adults will be in trouble. The boy asks to return to the cage, and when the older brother returns, he will beat them to death. They lock the door and make sure that the children can no longer escape on their own. The oldest child comes forward and asks to be beaten, but the other children are not to be touched. Okay, since the guy wants it that way, the uncle agrees and takes the stick from the floor. The guy stands still and waits for his punishment. He will be taught a good lesson. Someone rushes in on them, almost knocking down the door. This is another villain. He complains that they make too much noise and can't just look after the children. Fingers grab onto a high fence. It looks like the main character is coming to help. This is the place Grandma told me about. Li Qin used a public phone to call the police. The yard looks huge. Now he can hear screams coming from the house. The older child protects the little ones with his body, and they, in turn, beg him to stop hitting him. The bad uncle prays for the whip and continues to inflict further wounds on him. Even his accomplice asks him to stop because they could be in big trouble. Finally, the police came to the rescue. Now everything should be fine. But she can't get through the small streets, so she hopes it's not a false alarm. He comes out and asks an elderly lady if she knows how to get to Block 104. She points to the left and asks him to climb over the wall. Then he will be in place. The policeman thanks the aunt and follows the indicated route. As he lands on the ground, he hears screams coming from the distance. It looks like something really happened, because someone is asking for help to come quickly. How these doors are not loved, the man also bursts in with his foot, opening it. The policeman points his gun and orders you to put your hands up. But when he enters, he sees only two bloody men and the main character. Blood is slowly dripping from Li Qing's hands, and he is covered in it. One of the gang is barely conscious and asking for help. Now we know that those were his screams. The main character is angry as never before. He is ready to kill anyone who stands in the way of justice. Strange place. One of the accomplices managed to escape. Now they have huge problems. He came to the so-called Chow, most likely the boss, next to whom sat a beautiful woman. The guy says that their base was discovered. Chow remains silent, but he is unlikely to be happy about it. The boss asks what happened to them and how they could allow something like this to happen. The subordinate claims that this happened because of Li Qing. He doesn't know why, but he is sure that other gangs couldn't do this. Dinzi and his two men are seriously injured, and the protagonist also brought the police. Chow replies that he will deal with it himself. They cannot be allowed to get involved in this story. Then this guy decides to call the man who works in the bureau's management. This man was with Hua's sister. He picks up the phone. Chow's subordinate asks him to do him a favor after telling him everything that happened. Dingxi, Li Qing, but he understands the situation and agrees. The guy thanks him and promises to forget the debt so that he doesn't worry about it. The beautiful building is the police department, where our main character was brought. An interrogation is underway. The law enforcement officer asks questions about why Li Qing beat up those men. He replies that he actually wanted to beat them to death, but was stopped. The policeman tries to help get out of it and whispers how best to say it. That is, it should have been self-defense. Self-defense. Another policeman comes to interrogate them and tells them that Chief Huang is looking for Chen. He has an important assignment, and you should ask him for more details. He will continue asking questions. As he leaves, he asks Zhao to be gentle with the young man. He is a good guy. Sitting down at the table, he suggests continuing. Why did he beat up those men? On Chen's advice, he replies that it was just self-defense. It looks like they remembered the guy. Now events are taking place in the hotel. Manager Liu informs Miss Lin that Li Qing has been arrested. The lady asks what happened. How could he be arrested? Again, the police department. Strange sounds are heard behind the iron door, so that even other people turn around. He broke into private property without permission and beat up law-abiding citizens. The protagonist used violence intentionally, and he is found guilty. Li Qing now realizes that he is collaborating with people from the gang. Zhao asks what's wrong with his face turning. Does he really want to attack the police officer? Now he can consider it as an attempt to attack the police officer. Chief Huang asked Chen to go out on some small business. He felt a bit uneasy. The main character was dressed in prison clothes and thrown into a dungeon, saying that from now on he would be here. They even put handcuffs on him. Apparently they consider the guy quite dangerous. He closes the door and asks someone to keep an eye on the new neighbor. With an evil smile, the guy replies that he is only glad of such an opportunity. The site again. Who will we meet there now and what events will unfold? This is Captain Tan meeting his old teacher. What is he doing here? Chen replies that his boss let him run errands, so he was able to drop by and see her. There are a couple of minutes left until the end of the girl's shift. Then she can treat the mentor to lunch. Some time passed, and they were able to go to the canteen located nearby. Chen remembers the police academy, and now the shameful Tang is already a captain. but she makes a remark and she is not stupid. The girl asks why they sent a man here. If they sent him on a business trip, then something serious must have happened. Speaking about this, he gets very angry because he had a very important matter, but in the end he is called and sent on minor matters. Turning to the new guy, they ask him what crime he is sitting here for, to which they receive the answer that he did not commit any crimes. He was accused unfairly. If this is so, then why did he end up here under severe punishment? What kind of harsh punishment is this, the protagonist thinks. It seems Enchin's predictions were true. His fellow prisoners think he has been made a scapegoat. The conversation in the restaurant continues. It's actually surprising that some ordinary guy found the bandit's base himself, to which the policeman who was there agrees. The kid was incredible. When the man rushed there, he was stunned by his gaze. His name was Li Qing, and there was a mole under his left eye. A mole under the left eye. The girl remembers that she has a similar friend. Are all Li Qings so strong? Apparently she doesn't yet understand that they are the same person. In prison, another guy asks you to stop gossiping with him. Shouldn't they beat him up? But they see him as a pathetic person, so he will make sure that his time here will be the best time of his life. And the other guy complains that when he came he got beat up, but it happened because of his overconfidence. It's lunchtime. Time to get out faster and get up one by one to get food. Having taken the food, the main character looks for a place where he can settle down. Two neighbors call him over and offer him to sit next to them. From now on, he is not alone and can stay with them, or he will get into trouble. They explain the prison rule, saying that there are people here that he should not provoke. First, Uncle Ben, 43 years old. Distinguishing features, part of his left eyebrow is missing, and he doesn't like ginger. Second, Prickly Chang. Special features. He keeps a black beetle as a pet. Although it is actually a lizard, he is good at fighting. This indicates that he is from the Shaolin Temple. If Li Qing accidentally provoked these two, he might still be able to survive, but in no case the one below. This is the Hell Wraith. It is called that because it looks like it came out of hell. Rumors say that he himself beat up 30 people and was even able to tear off the head of a living person. He thinks that he is mentally ill. How else can his actions be explained? At this time, a man comes up behind him. It was that same hellish ghost, who, having heard the conversation, said that he was healthy and that he should bite his tongue. It seems they were only talking about him. The colorist is very scared by the sudden appearance. He takes the curry from the plate and squeezes it. Apparently he didn't like today's curry. He wipes his hand on the guy, thus saying that he is worthless. Hell Wraith continues to mock. Since his mouth stinks, he can help get rid of the smell by cutting out his tongue. A drop of food falls on the protagonist's face. Apparently he is also unhappy. He apologizes, asking her to come closer, but this will most likely only lead to violence. Li Qing warns him that it would be better for him to stay away from him. The guy is surprised by such impudence. He is the strongest here, and such a brat is addressing him like that. He asks to speak louder. Because you can't hear anything. He said to stay away? A demon from hell takes a spoon and breaks it in half with a loud crack. Does Li Qing know that he can cut his throat with just this thing? The main character is not afraid and shows his skill by taking the piece of iron and smashing it into the table. He shows his result and asks if this is what he wanted to do with it. The spoon pierced the table, digging in. It will be difficult to pull something like this out. His neighbors are shocked, and now they think the guy is cool, no matter how iron the surface was. Even Hellwraith is surprised. He now thinks he's quite capable. He puts his hand in his pocket and says that he admires people like him. He leaves the guy in order not to ruin his reputation. As he leaves the dining room, he promises to see him again next time. With a confident gait and his head held high, he walks through the hall. But after that, turning the corner, he immediately hid. It seems he was afraid of Li Qin. Fortunately, he reacted immediately. He didn't expect to meet someone so capable. The guys ask about this piece of iron. Is it magic? Because it's incredibly cool. The main character and his friends also leave the canteen, and on the way they ask to teach them this trick. Uncle Ben comes closer and notices a spoon sticking out, he thinks. This looks very interesting. Apparently something very interesting is planned. Here again, the conversation continues between Tang Xin and the policeman. From the girl's stories, he guesses that they are talking about the same Li Qing. The girl hadn't thought about it and is now shocked. Exactly, how come she didn't guess it right away? The policeman heard about the robbery case and thought she had improved. But she can't continue like that and must act as a leader. The girl says that she solved this case only thanks to the main character and owes him a lot. Therefore, she asks the teacher to help her figure it out. Chen is willing to help, but he will not be lenient. This situation looks very strange. The gang member calls Chief Huan again, asking if he received the gift that was sent to him. He replies that he received it, and now there is no need to worry, and the problem has already been solved. He can promise that Li Qin will stay there for the rest of his life. The guy turns to Mouse, that is, the neighbor, asking if he can call from here. They tell him that it is possible, but only once a month, and for this you need to get permission. It all looks like the main character was deceived. He didn't expect that these people had connections in the police. He has to find someone who can help, otherwise he will stay here forever. The next day, the captain comes back from the completed work. He thanks Zhao for his help and asks where the guy from yesterday is now. The employee replies that he left after writing the statement. Manager Liu meets some guy at the door and asks who he is. A guy with blue hair, already familiar to us, appears there. He is rude to the girl, saying that such a huge company is now recruiting children. She's very angry and becomes like a witch in disguise. Huoyan apologizes for his joke and introduces himself as Miss Lin's new bodyguard chief. Although it was a lie, he is now assigned to handle Manager Liu's security matters. He asks her to take care of him, but she apparently didn't appreciate his greeting. Li Qin and the boys approach the guard to ask about the call. Old customers are allowed to call home, but newcomers are not allowed to do so. In bewilderment, they ask why this is so, because it is not fair. It turns out that this is a special order from the authorities. Li Qing has committed a terrible crime and will be under surveillance for some time. Here is Mr. Chef Huan's office, where he plots his intrigues. He receives a report that the solitary confinement cell is empty. In the afternoon, he will send a man there to take Li Qing there and prevent him from meeting anyone. The boss praises the worker for his excellent work and says that he will consider assigning him the role of captain, since he is more capable than Chen. He is pleased and thanks the gentleman for his kindness and understanding. The prison guard approached the cell and asked which of the prisoners was Li Qing. He shouted at him to come out. The other prisoners were surprised that the guard called Li Qing to him, since he was a newcomer. The guard said that Li would be transferred to another cell, specifically, a solitary confinement cell. Qing became nervous. The prisoner assigned to watch him asked why he was being moved to solitary confinement so quickly. Why couldn't he be left here? He was an honest guy. The guard didn't waste time on chatter and told Li Qing to move, since it wasn't him who made the decision. He reassured Qin that he could watch TV if he wanted in solitary confinement, and that it was safer there than here. He handcuffed him. Li Qing's comrade stood up for him, trying to stop him from being taken to another cell. He shouted that this guy had done nothing. As the guard was leading Li away, his comrade shouted that he had done nothing wrong. The policeman immediately turned around in surprise. He asked what he was doing there then. He added that if he was innocent, there should be someone who would appeal. He said the prisoner should not worry about him. Li Qing suddenly had a revelation. His eyes filled with surprise. He was dumbfounded. He recognized someone in the picture the prisoner was holding. He remembered Hao Yan. The guard kept pulling him forward. He urged him on, telling him to go faster. Qing shouted that he knew Hao Yan. Li Qing shouted at everyone that he knew Hao Yan. But no one listened to him. The guard continued to take him away. The prisoner wondered. He was surprised. Did Qing really know Hao Yan? He couldn't figure out if it was true. It turned out that Hao Yan was his younger brother. He wondered, how did Li Qing know his younger brother? He stared at a photograph of him and his brother having fun. It was taken before he went to prison. Suddenly Hao Yan came to the prison to meet his elder brother. His gaze was serious. The guards released the prisoner, saying that he had 15 minutes to see his brother. Hao Yan was overjoyed to see his older brother. He looked at him with joy in his eyes. The prisoner was no less happy than him. He said that they should leave the conversation for later. He asked if Yan Li Qing knew. Captain Chen asked Zhao if Qing had returned. He said it was a huge matter and asked Zhao if he had asked where Li had gone. He replied that Li had insisted on leaving and he had no right to stop him, since he had made the decision himself. He also added that from now on he was assigned to investigate the matter, so the captain had nothing to worry about. Chen was angry. He put his hand on Zhao's shoulder. He seemed to guess something. He was very thoughtful. The captain asked if he really took him for a fool. He still had his hand on his shoulder. Zhao asked not to touch him and just say what he wanted to say. He pushed the captain's hand away. He said that everyone knows that the captain is eager to solve this case, but it is not very good for him. It will be more effective if everyone works as a team. Chen knew that Zhao was hiding something from him. He thought that Huang was definitely involved and Li Qing might be in danger. The captain entered the archive and demanded to see Li Qing's investigation report that Zhao had presented yesterday. The girl working in the archive kindly gave him the investigation report. The captain took it in his hands. Chen looked at the investigation report, and at one point he simply became angry and began to leave. The girl did not understand what had happened to him. He slammed the door behind him. The girl wondered why he was so angry. What was wrong with the protocol? She picked up the report and saw that instead of notes about the investigation, there were just blank papers. Hou Yan asked his elder brother why he thought Li Qing was innocent. He asked, what if he was just lying to them? He said that they should not create problems for themselves and asked them not to worry about the problem. The prisoner said he thought Qing was telling the truth. He said Yan was now the only one who could help contact people outside the prison. Hao agreed to help his brother and said that he would conduct a thorough investigation and find out whether Li Qing was guilty. Captain Chen, at the same time, called his disciple, Captain Tang Xin. She picked up the phone and he greeted her. He said that he was in the archives, and it seemed that something had happened to Li Qing. Captain Xin's face immediately became serious. Hao Yan thought that although it was troublesome to investigate, Li Qing had helped him before. He decided that he would return the favor. He stood there wondering where he could begin to investigate this strange situation. He was going through his options. He was standing at the reception and asked the girl when she finished work. He suggested that she go to a restaurant. Captain Chen was standing in the same room, listening to the conversation behind his back with a serious expression. Hao said he asked the policewoman for her contact number. He said they could go to the restaurant when she was free. She said it was business hours. The captain came up to the guy abruptly. He put his hand on his shoulder and addressed him. He asked the guy if he came to the police station to report the incident or what. He said that otherwise, he should leave and not interfere with work. The guy asked the policeman to calm down, saying that nothing terrible was happening here. He was just talking to a girl. The captain put his hand on his arm and said that if he wanted to talk, he should go to the park and talk to the old people. But this was no place for talking. The policewoman sat silently and did her job. The guy did not resist and said that he would kindly leave this place. As he left, he gestured for the girl to call him in her free time. He smiled sarcastically. She had clearly made an impression on him. Time passed and the girl's working day was already over. She decided to have some fun and called him. They were sitting in the restaurant, and she was praising the place, saying that the food there was really delicious. Hao Yan said that he was glad that she liked it. He said he was always curious about how things were done. He asked if anything interesting had happened at the police station recently. The girl thought. She continued to smile. She was having fun. She said yes. She began to tell about yesterday's story with their captain. Hao Yan had already said goodbye to the girl, saying that he would call her again when he had some free time. She was drunk and went home. Yan thought about it that evening. He realized that he hadn't been able to find out anything special. He only knew that Captain Chen was in charge of the case. Manager Liu was enjoying her lunch, but she was wary. She wondered where her new bodyguard was. Hao Yan watched from the bushes as Captain Chen conversed with Captain Tang Xin. Tan told him that she had applied for leave to come here. She also didn't tell anyone where she was going. Captain Chen said that they were closely monitoring his whereabouts. He couldn't act as he wanted. If he wanted to help Li Qing, he had to rely on Tang. But at one point, the police officer's conversation was interrupted. Captain Tang Xin realized that someone was following them. A hand was sticking out from behind the bushes, and Xin immediately began to suspect surveillance. She began to run towards the bushes. She pounced on Hao Yan, who was watching them from the bushes. She pulled him away with particular anger. Yan was shocked because he didn't expect that one day he would be lifted up by a woman so easily, as if he were a chicken. He was surrounded by 2 policemen. Tan became nervous and asked what happened to him and why he was not moving. Huo Yan realized that the situation was very unpleasant. Captain Chen asked if he was okay, but he is a very courageous and flexible person. Ho couldn't overcome such a small embarrassment. He still needs to live his life, but he dusts himself off and pulls himself together. Yan stood up and said that he had just heard that they wanted to help Li Qing. He asked if he knew then that he was in prison. Captain Chen was angry. He said that these bastards treated him like a fool. He decided that he had to save Li Qing. He said that this problem has big consequences. They need to be very careful. If they reveal the crime of Huan and his gang, it will be a sensation. Li Qing was locked in the cell and wondered if the mouse had informed Huo Yan for help. He couldn't contact anyone at the moment. He continued to think and wondered, should he escape from prison? He was alert and could not sleep. The prisoner quietly told him that he would not be able to escape from prison. Li Qing immediately looked at him. The prisoner said that he had to think of a way to be locked next to Li Qing. He asked, since Li was locked up here and had nothing to do, would he like to learn something from him? Captain Chen said that the most important witness now is the bandit Dingxi, along with his gang. He said 2 of them are in intensive care. He said they're going to have to go to the hospital tonight and try to ask if they have a mastermind. They can solve the problem only if they find the mastermind. They need to find out who is behind all this. There was a man in the ward. He was in intensive care. Unknown people entered his room, took off his mask, and began to suffocate him with a pillow. He could not resist them. Tang Xin said that the mastermind should be in this hospital. Huo said that he was not sure if they could enter the hospital. The police should send people here. She replied that she would talk to them about all this. They watched the hospital carefully, wondering how they could enter it. But at one point, they heard some strange sounds coming from the hospital window. They immediately became wary. There were screams coming from the room. Shin and Huo were still on guard and watching the situation. He shouted for her to go and check on Ding Xi immediately while he chased after him. Huoyan ran after the criminal with all his might, the leaves of the trees swaying with all his might. He knocked down everything in his path. He threw an object that came into his hands at the criminal, hoping that it would fall and stop him. The criminal ducked. The object flew forward. He continued to run. This irritated Huoyan. He got angry and suddenly kicked the criminal in the face. The blow was very sharp. The criminal was confused, but at one point he grabbed his leg in mid-flight. He squeezed his hand tightly, as if he wanted to break it. But Huoyan was not stopped by this. He tried to free his leg with all his might. He resisted as much as he could. At one point, he managed to break free from the criminal's hands. He kicked him in the face with all his might, but the criminal dodged. Huoyan jumped to the ground after the blow. He was surprised by the agility of his opponent. The criminal ran away. Ho shouted at him to stop and surrender voluntarily, but the criminal did not listen to him and ran away. Yan was angry because he had missed the chance to get closer to solving what was happening, because he could have extracted a lot of information. He entered the hospital building and began to walk down the corridor. He looked around carefully. Ho wondered why there were no police officers outside. Tan watched the situation nervously. She nervously stated that Ding Xi and the others had passed away, except for those henchmen who were not in the hospital. But there was still one person involved in all this. He disappeared. They didn't know where he was. Captain Chen began to interrogate Zhao about where he was hiding another accomplice of Ding Xi. He remained silent. He said that the captain was annoying him. He was busy and he didn't have a minute to argue with him. He asked not to stand in his way unless there was something urgent. At one point, a sound came from the captain's back pocket. It was the sound of a mobile phone. Someone was calling him. Chen picked up the phone and asked what happened. Zhao's back was turned and he looked nervous. He started to write something, but then Chen stopped him, putting his hand on the notebook. Apparently, something became known. He said threateningly that Ding Xi was dead. Zhao became even more nervous, as if he was in a panic. The enraged captain began to question why no one was sent to the hospital to protect him. He asked if Zhao had done this deliberately. He asked not to touch him. He asked if all these people didn't deserve to die. He acted innocent. The captain looked at him in surprise. As he left, he said that Zhao was no different from them. The criminal was freezing in his cell and thinking about how wrong he was. He told himself that he should have died. He could barely hold back his tears. He was very cold. He couldn't find a place for himself and didn't understand how much longer he would have to hide, because 3 days had already passed. But suddenly, Zhao entered the room. He ordered the criminal to get up from the bed. The criminal did not understand what had happened. He told the criminal to go away and not to come back. He added that he should not look for anyone and run as far as he could. The man panicked because he didn't know how far he could run since he had no money or even an ID. Thoughts literally ate away at him from the inside. He understood that he would not return home. Otherwise, they would come for him. He lay there thinking. Suddenly, someone started knocking on the door. The knocks were very loud. The man panicked. He became very nervous, his eyes wide open in fear. He didn't know what was waiting for him. Captain Chen asked Huoyan if he had managed to see the face of the last henchman. He replied that unfortunately he was unable to do so because it was too dark there. The captain said that both witnesses had been eliminated, and the remaining one must already be in the killer's sights. He said that they had to find him before he was killed. The last henchman was shrouded in fear. He knew that this was his end. He was very tired. He wanted to disinfect his hands. He sprayed some antiseptic, but it turned out that it was over. This confused him. The news said that this morning, Miss Lu reported to the police station that her tenant, Mr. Ding Xi, had died. He was guilty of kidnapping children. Captain Chen was upset when he heard this news. He knew that it would be much harder for them to sort out this whole situation now. Huoyan said that it was his fault, because if he had caught that guy yesterday, everything would have been different. Captain Tang Xin shouted that now was not the time to discuss all this. She said that they should try to find evidence somewhere else. Chen said there was another lead. It was Ding Xi's mother. He said she might know something, but he wasn't sure she would agree to help them. Tang Xin immediately asked where this woman lived. She exclaimed that they would go and find her right away. Captain Chen said that they couldn't go. His face was serious and thoughtful. He was thinking about his plan of action. Xin asked why they couldn't go. He replied that he would go alone. The two of them would have to go to another place to get evidence. A TV news anchor contacted Huan. She asked him if this murder was connected to the kidnapped children case. Meanwhile, in the prison, the prisoners were being served lunch. A tray of food was brought to the cell where Li Qing was sitting. He was very hungry and greedily began to absorb everything that was on the tray. But at one point, he bit the bread and felt something strange. He opened a piece of bread and saw something strange inside, like a note. He took it out of the bread. Lee opened the note and began to read. It was a note from Brother Mouse. He wrote that he told Huo Yan what had happened, and Huo Yan in turn promised to help. He also wrote that if Li Qing was truly innocent, his brother would definitely find a way to help him, and he added that Li should take care of himself. The prisoner who was sitting in the cell next to Li asked why he started smiling. Was it some good news? King was stunned. He asked how he knew he was smiling if he didn't make a sound. The prisoner asked if he really thought he was not as good as others said. He said he could hear him breathing through the wall. Li Qing thought he was crazy. He thought it was great to have someone to chat with as a neighbor. The prisoner asked him to create silence, saying that he could hear Li calling his personality names in his soul. He asked Qin to sit closer to the wall, saying that he could show what he was really capable of. Li Qing became nervous and apologized to Mr. Ben, saying that he was only attracted to women. Ben became angry. He started shouting and asked what kind of nonsense Li Qing was talking about. He told him to just lean against the wall. He did her a favor and leaned against the wall anyway. He said that first he had to warn her that nothing would happen between them. Mr. Feng spat on his hands and rubbed them together, saying that he was beginning to show what he was capable of. Li Qing smiled indifferently and said that he was willing to see his abilities. He waited silently. The prisoner clenched his fists and punched the wall behind which Qing stood with all his might. He had not expected any of this. Mr. Feng almost destroyed the barrier between the cells. Qing was completely shocked. He did not expect such a blow and fell to the floor. Mr. Huang smiled and said that he heard that someone new had arrived today. He was sitting in some establishment. The man said that thanks to his patronage, their business was thriving. He said that they had selected new people especially for him as a thank you. He shouted to the girls to come into the room and meet their new master. 2 huge girls entered the room. They were several times taller than Huan. They looked at him angrily. Huan took off his glasses, thinking that he had imagined the whole scene. His astonishment was indescribable. The man said that they took into account Mr. Huan's preferences and found curvy girls. These girls are bodybuilders. One of them even participated in championships. The girls continued to look at Huan nervously and angrily. The man asked if the gentleman was satisfied with the girls provided. The gentleman was at a loss for words and was completely shocked. Fear was hidden in his eyes. But at one point, he said with a smile on his face that he really liked these girls and he would kindly spend time with them. The old mother of the murdered Ding Shi burst into tears. She mourned the death of her son. She could not stop crying. Captain Chen entered the old woman's house to talk. She immediately began to drive him away, saying that she would not tell him anything. She said that her son was being watched by the police and they don't even know who dared to kill him. She screamed that they hurt her son. She looked angrily at the captain and said that she cursed them all and that they would die in terrible agony. Captain Chen did not argue with her. He said that she was right and it was all their fault. He asked her for forgiveness, saying that because of his mistake, her son suffered. He said that her son might have known the killer. He asked her to tell him a little about his life, because it could help find the culprit. One of the girls called Captain Chen and said that they had already gotten Huan drunk and he still hadn't told her anything. She asked how things were going with the captain. He replied that it was not very good. The old lady did not know much information. He said that Ding Shi rarely discussed anything important with her, and little could be learned. Drunk Huan asked the girls what they liked. Maybe cars or handbags? He said he could give them anything. One of the girls asked if he was really so rich that he could afford any gift. She was surprised. He smiled sarcastically. He realized that he had interested the girls with his wealth. Even though he was drunk, he was pleased with himself. Li Qing told Uncle Feng that he did not quite understand what his abilities were. He asked how he did it. He asked him to teach him. Uncle Feng kindly agreed to teach him his techniques, but he said he had to clarify something first. Feng said that there are many people with special abilities in the world. There will always be someone stronger than you. Don't think you are omnipotent. He said that once Li mastered the skill, he should never use it for selfish purposes. He also stated that he would have to take at least one person as a disciple in his entire life. Uncle added that the skill could not be lost. He promised that if Li Qing was capable enough, he would teach him everything he knew and could do. Drunk Huan could no longer control himself. He overindulged in alcohol. He asked the girl not to leave. Tan asked her partner, who was also supposedly a female bodybuilder, if he had recorded all of this on video. He replied that he had recorded everything that the drunk Huan had said. He held the device on which the recording was saved. Huo Yan admitted that he didn't think Huang would give it all up so easily. He said he didn't even know how he managed to work for so many years. Tang Xin said that none of this mattered. Since they got what they wanted, they could get out of here. The most important thing was to help Li Qing. Ho Tan and Chen gathered in their apartment and listened to the recordings they had managed to make. Huang said that as long as there was money, any issue could be resolved. He said that if he hadn't taken out Ding Si and his men, he would have been a fool. Otherwise, how could he be in charge here? He also said in the recording that on another day he would simply receive more money, and while she was with him, she would not need anything. Tang Xin exclaimed that this was definitely ironclad evidence. She said that they should report this immediately. Chen said that there was evidence, of course, but if they wanted to report him, they would have to exceed his authority. After all, Huang was the head of the Public Security Bureau. Huoyan asked, "Does that mean they should meet him directly?" He said that he seemed to know someone who could help. Mrs. Lin was sitting in the office. Suddenly the phone rang. She picked up the phone and was asked a question. Why was Li Qing sent to a maximum security prison? She immediately went to Uncle Long Wu. He laughed and said that she was rarely seen here. He asked if she had really decided to marry his son. She smiled and asked not to embarrass her like that. She felt very awkward because she hadn't come there for that at all. She said that she came today because she wanted her uncle to listen to something. She handed him a tape recorder. Long Wu was surprised. He asked her where she got the recorder and what was on it. She said he should just listen. He listened and immediately became angry. He loudly slammed his palm on the table, saying that all this was simply ridiculous. He asked Lin how she got this tape. Who was this so-called boss anyway? He said if it was true, he wouldn't let him get away with it. Lin replied that it was a voice recording of the head of one of Mr. Long Wu's branches, Huang Ju. She assured him that it was all true. At the same time, chaos reigned in Huang Ju's office. He was informed that the branch owner had arrived here. Zhao said that yes, the master had arrived and was at the main gate. Huang became very nervous. Zhao asked him why the head of the service needed to come here, and even without warning. Was it because of the business they were doing? The boss ordered him to shut up. He asked why he was panicking, even though Huan's head was in chaos. He suggested that perhaps the chief had come for another reason. He said that they would see how things went and they would react accordingly. The staff lined up for the arrival of the branch owner. Everyone stood straight. Mr. Long Wu walked in, accompanied by 2 security guards. Zhu began to greet the gentleman kindly, asking why he had personally come. After all, he had not even warned him of his arrival. Huan was very uncomfortable, nervous, and didn't know how to keep the conversation going. He asked if there were any errands for him today. Long Wu asked him sternly if he was the one who arrested the young man named Li Qing and sent him to a maximum security prison. Huangju pretended he didn't know anything. He said he had arrested so many criminals that he couldn't remember the name. The branch manager was angered by this behavior. He knew that Zhu was pretending. He slammed his palm on the table and said enough. He started shouting that someone had shown him proof of Huan's scams. He asked if he was still planning to pretend. Huan began to assure the leader of Ding that all this was slander. He shouted that he did nothing of the sort. He asked to call this man. He wanted to deal with him. The leader told Zhu to stop raising his voice, since he says he is innocent. Then there should be no reason to worry. He said he had reported the situation to the disciplinary committee and his home was already being searched. He said Huan could stop pretending. He also added that the evidence he already has will be enough to immediately remove the deceiver from office. Li Qing was in the cell and his calm was interrupted by the guard inserting the key into the lock and turning it. Li wondered what they wanted from him, since it was already deep into the night. He became slightly wary. The prison guard opened the door and told him he was free to go. He was no longer charged with anything. Li was stunned. He was surprised and told himself that he didn't expect Huoyan to be able to do this. He was able to help quickly. Madame Ling saw Li Qing and joyfully exclaimed that she was glad to see him. Her eyes were filled with happiness. She said that she had come to pick him up. He was deeply surprised when he saw Miss Lin. He didn't even think that he would see her again. He approached her and asked how she managed to find out that he was in a maximum security penal colony. She replied that he should thank Huoyan and his friends for that. They had done a good job for him. She suggested that they discuss everything when they were away from here. Li Qing asked for a little time. He wanted to say a few words to his master. Madame Ling was surprised. Lai walked up to the door of the cell where Uncle Feng was sitting. He thanked him for everything and said that he would come visit him later. Feng said he didn't know Li could figure it all out in a few days. He told him to remember to practice the skill he taught him. He handed him a book, saying that everything else was in it. He told Li Qing to train alone when he got home. He was surprised by such a gift from the master. He asked if the master was sure that he wanted to give him such a valuable thing. Uncle Feng told him to take this book. He said that he already knew the contents by heart. He didn't have to keep it with him. The master added that there was one thing Li must remember, no matter what might happen. The main thing is that he must keep his promise. Li Qing said that the master need not worry. After all, he would remember everything he had promised him and would fulfill it in any case. The guard opened the front door. The bright rays of the sun blinded Li Qing's eyes. He was finally free. Lee stepped outside the prison yard. He was glad for the sun, which he had not seen for so long. It was beautiful outside. Captain Tang Xin rushed towards him and hugged him tightly. She was very happy to see him. Lee was also very happy to see her. She said she was so happy that she had finally managed to get him out of the maximum security prison. She hugged him tightly. Tan said they decided to celebrate his release. She told him to wash his face with grapefruit leaf infusion later to cleanse himself of his troubles. Li Xing sincerely thanked everyone, saying that he was able to do everything only thanks to their help. Tang Xin, delighted at his release, picked him up and said, "What's the point of talking such nonsense?" She shouted that he was their hero and she would carry him to the hotel for a drink. Sign still held him in her arms. Everyone was surprised by this. They asked her to put him down on the floor. Huo Yan asked Chen if they should help Li, but he replied that they had to protect themselves now. Miss Lin shouted for Captain Tang to stop, as Li Qing seemed to have already turned pale from all of this. The branch chief was still investigating. He asked Huang why he had detained and imprisoned Li Qing. Who ordered him to do this? He replied that no one. He admitted that it was his own decision. He looked at the floor. The boss started shouting that this was nonsense because he and Li Qing had not even had any disagreements. How could he come to such a decision? He asked. Who was the customer? Zhu asked Chief Ding to stop this ridiculous interrogation. He said that he had no customer and he did it of his own free will. But the person who ordered all this was sitting in his office. His servants were telling him that something had happened to Huang Zhu because the disciplinary committee was conducting a search of his house. The customer was thoughtful. He said that after so many years, Zhu got a management position and could not hold on to it. He called him an idiot. The servant said that he was afraid that Huang Zhu might not be able to resist and betray them by giving away all the information. But the boss said that he didn't have to worry about it, because deep down Huan understood anyway. He understands that if he wants to live, he will not give out any information about them and their activities. Li Qing and Huo Yan came to Manager Liu. She asked if they even knew how long she had waited for them. She asked if she knew that a gentleman's word is law. She also asked if they had forgotten that they were supposed to protect her since they were her bodyguards. They remained silent. She started screaming that this wasn't an exhibition, but some kind of mess. A bunch of idiots were just itching to rob her. Li Qing asked her in surprise, what happened? Beads of sweat were running down his face from nerves. He was wary. Manager Liu replied that it was nothing special, but due to renovations, the exhibition would be postponed for a few days. Huo Yan breathed a sigh of relief and said that since the problem was in the decoration of the room, there was nothing they could do to help it. Li supported his words. Liu added that besides this, the model's party had already taken place yesterday. This upset the bodyguards very much, because they were eager to get there. Miss Lin told Qin Chen that she was going home and asked her to take care of things here. Chen suggested asking the driver to take her. Li Hing responded to the help, saying that he could take her home since he was just about to leave. Lin happily agreed to his proposal, saying that if they left now, they would arrive home in the evening. Miss Lin fell fast asleep while they were driving home. Li Qing woke her up, saying that they had already arrived home. She reluctantly opened her eyes. She really wanted to sleep. At first, she didn't understand what he wanted from her. She said that Li drove so fast and skillfully that she even managed to fall asleep while they were driving. She was delighted. He said that he had a lot of experience. Lin got out of the car and told him to drive the car home and return it tomorrow. She praised him, saying that he had worked hard today. As she was getting out of the car, the heel of her shoe broke. She screamed in pain and fell to the ground. Li ran to her and asked if she was okay. Li Qing helped her up and asked if she could stand on her feet. She replied that she couldn't because it was too painful. He immediately picked her up and began to carry her towards the house. Miss Lin was surprised, but delighted by Li's responsiveness. Li Qing held her hips gently. Her feelings were mixed. She was still surprised by this action. He asked him for permission to help her and carry her home. She was silent because she did not know what to answer. Li told Lin that she didn't have to worry about him dropping her. He promised to hold her tightly. Her eyes were surprised, and at the same time she was calm and embarrassed. She said that she trusted him. He asked if she had any healing oil at home to apply to the injured area. Lin took off her tights to examine the bruise. She said it looked like there was a bottle on the shelf. Li Qing took the oil and poured some on his hand. He said that he needed to rub the oil in quickly, otherwise it would hurt even more when his legs swelled. He began to rub the oil in his hands before applying it to Miss Lin's skin. He rubbed his hands thoroughly. He said that it seemed that there was no fracture and that this oil would be enough. He told her to just rub it in every time and everything would go away. Li Qing said that he began to rub the oil in. He asked to endure the unpleasant pain that might occur for a little while. Miss Lin was a little scared and nervously adjusted her beautiful hair. Her look was a little pitiful. He said it would hurt a little and asked if she could bear it. His gaze was calm. He wanted to help her. Miss Lin panicked a little and prepared herself to endure the pain, saying that she would endure everything. She said that she had an important meeting tomorrow. She could not miss it. She screamed in pain. She felt very uncomfortable. Li Qing said that was it. The process was over. He asked how she felt. Lin said that the pain had already subsided a little. He stood up from his knees and said that it was very late and he had to go home. He was surprised how time had flown by so quickly. Miss Lin was a little wary. She said that by the time he got home it would already be dawn. She invited him to stay with her. She asked him how he felt about it. She also said that he could sleep in the same bed with her. Li Qing was shocked by this proposal. He asked again if he understood everything correctly and she was offering him to sleep with her. She said yes, she has a guest room, he can sleep there. Li didn't know, was shocked and didn't know what to answer. He stayed with her and took a shower. He said that he really liked taking a shower. It was very pleasant for him. He thought that he was in such a hurry that he didn't even properly thank Huoyan and the others for getting him out of prison. Suddenly he heard a woman's scream coming from another room. He suspected something was wrong. He wondered if something had happened to Miss Lin. It couldn't be that she had been kidnapped again. He rushed to help. He ran nervously into her room and shouted if she was okay. He was very scared by this shout. Li Qing and Miss Ling's eyes met. She was lying naked. There was a slight pause. They didn't know what to say. Li screamed in discomfort. He didn't know how to react to what he saw. The situation was very strange. Miss Lin also screamed. She asked why Li was screaming louder than her. She felt very uncomfortable about all this. Qing struggled to find the right words. He apologized for invading Madame's personal space. He said that he thought she was unwell, but she didn't care about this situation anymore. And with great surprise, she asked where he got so many scars on his body. She was very thoughtful and said that these scars looked fresh. Li tried to reassure her. She continued that some of them looked like bullet holes. Li Qing began to divert the topic. He said that since she was fine, he would go take a shower. He walked along and told himself that she had been very attentive. He also told himself that he had almost let it slip. But he smiled sarcastically, telling himself that despite all this, he had not wasted his time. He remembered Madame Lin's gorgeous breasts. The morning came and there was a wonderful breakfast on the table. The smell wafted throughout the house. It was fried eggs with sausages and a sandwich. Miss said that she never thought that Li Qing could cook so well. She asked if he added any seasoning. She found it very tasty. Li said he was glad that Miss Lin enjoyed the breakfast. He said she had helped him so much and he didn't know how to thank her. She enjoyed her breakfast and said that if he wanted to thank her, he could help guard the exhibition. She also asked him to protect Qin Chen. He exclaimed that it was a very easy task for him. He promised to do his best. Miss said that it was excellent. She said that in a few days, he and his assistant Qin Chen would fly there, and she would book tickets for them. Some unknown and unpleasant people pestered a nice girl. One of them said that she had better listen, because he did not want to beat a woman. The girl confidently shouted that it was her house and she would not sell it to them. She threatened to call the police if they did not leave immediately. The gangster boss ordered his subordinate to throw away the phone of a cute girl. He kindly began to carry out the order. The bandit threw the phone to the ground with all his might. The shards of the phone's sensor flew apart. The phone shattered into pieces. The girl was overcome with rage. She asked if he really wanted to die. She asked why they threw away her phone, and if they even knew how much it was worth. One of the bandits looked down at the girl. She was wary and looked into his eyes with anger. He told her that she had nice breasts, he liked them very much. He put his arm around her and asked if she needed a partner. But at one point, Li Qing suddenly burst into the room. He threw the unfortunate bandit aside, grabbing his face. The girl watched everything that was happening and was shocked. She did not understand where her savior came from. Li continued to beat at the girl's offenders. He beat the bandit mercilessly, and he slammed one of them face down on the floor. He pressed the bandit's face to the floor with all his strength and began to press him tightly. The bandit's blood oozed and flowed all over the floor. The bandit was bleeding, and Li Qing was pleased with himself and the fact that he had restored justice and protected the harmless girl. He asked the unfortunate and dishonored bandit how he dared to create chaos and impose his own order here. Was it really so inexpensive? The bandit's subordinates were stunned by such an act. They immediately ran up to the boss with screams and fear in their eyes in order to help him. He got up from the floor and screamed, how dare he hit him in the face. His nose was bleeding and he held him down. He threatened that he had connections. Li looked at him menacingly and said that he didn't care about his connections. If he dared to create problems for him, he would personally deal with him, and he would definitely not leave alive then. The bandit boss still held his nose and asked if he really thought he would scare them with this. He threatened that they would not stop. Li Qing said that he would give them another chance if they still wanted to live. His gaze was threatening. He shouted at them to get out of there and never come into his life again and not dare to create problems for him. The bandits' nose continued to bleed. They ran away and shouted at the end that they would return. Li Qing walked up to the frightened Sister Hua and asked if she was okay. She was stunned and very scared. She looked at him and couldn't believe that it was the same Li. She told herself that it was the first time she had seen him like this. Li Qing began to smile and asked why she was silent. Was she afraid of those thugs? He offered to help her. Hua was upset and cried a little. She felt sorry for her broken phone. She was upset that she would have to buy a new one. Li exclaimed that he was done packing and they could go. He threw a huge backpack over his shoulders. He told his sister that she would have to stay with her aunt for a couple of days, in case they came back and tried to do something again. Hua told him that he could not worry and calmly go about his business, and she would stay and handle everything. Li Qing was pleased with his sister and said that he was at ease for her. He stood there with a smile on his face because he was very happy to see her. They came to the aunt's house. Li started ringing the bell, but the aunt did not come out. He did not understand what had happened. Sister Hua said that auntie had hearing problems and suggested that she shout. Maybe that would help. Li Qing cleared his throat and gathered his courage. He began to shout loudly with all his might. At one point, an old woman came out and asked who it was. She accidentally hit him with the door. It was very painful for Li. It's not every day that you hit your face against a door. His face turned red and he could barely contain his anger. A bandit with a broken nose complained to his comrade that he had been beaten. He said that his brother should avenge him. His companion asked calmly what had happened this time. He was calmly wiping the dishes. The bandit, almost in tears, began to tell that today he went to sort things out with the residents in the old part of the city. As a result, he was beaten by some man. The comrade asked if he had taken people with him. How did it happen that he was beaten? He asked who this man was. The bandit replied that he had asked people around the area, and most of them told him that it was Li Qing. He turned around and looked at the bandit in surprise. He knew that Li Qing was not so simple. He was strong and smart. He said that these people would never understand what value was right under their feet. He ordered the bandit to stand up. He calmly told the bandit that he had one task for him. The bandit could hardly hold back his tears. The boss ordered him to find out information about Li Qing's past. He told him to search very carefully and not to jump at the first piece of information that came his way. Lai was about to leave. He told Sister Hua that it was time for him to go. He asked her to take care of herself and told her to go to the service center while he was gone. Auntie said she couldn't stand this kind of behavior. She asked if she could not act like newlyweds. Sister Hua was confused by these words and asked what Mrs. Wang was saying. Wang replied that she was telling it like it is. Li Qing felt embarrassed and asked Mrs. Wang to look after Sister Hua for him. He scratched his head. Hua, at the last moment before leaving, Li shouted for him to pay attention to her. He turned around in surprise. He didn't understand what was happening. She immediately came up to him and kissed him on the neck. Li was very pleased. Sister gently pressed her chest against him and hugged him. Li Qing felt indescribably pleasant, something he had never felt before. She looked at him sweetly and asked him to come back as soon as possible. She said that she would miss him very much. Li, feeling an indescribable pleasure, threw the backpack away. He exclaimed that it was staying and not going anywhere. The man waiting for Li Qing at the airport was nervous and wondered where he was. After all, he had to board a plane soon. The girl standing next to him told him not to worry so much. She said that as long as he was so worried, he wouldn't even be able to enjoy hot tofu. Almost at the last moment, Li Qing arrived. He greeted his partner and apologized for being late. He justified himself by saying that there were huge traffic jams on the way to the airport, and he had to run on foot. His partner asked in surprise if he really had run here on foot and not driven there. The dispatcher announced a request to prepare for boarding the plane. Everyone listened attentively. The gorgeous blonde said that it was time for them to board. She had a charming look and a sweet smile. The plane took off. Li Qing was sitting with his partner. He introduced himself and asked what his partner's name was. He, meanwhile, was looking at the laptop screen. The partner introduced himself. His name is Wang Zhen. He is from the finance department. He said that he would need to stop there on the way. He also introduced a charming blonde. She was Liu's manager's assistant. Her name was Peach. She said she was very pleased to meet him. Li was also very pleased to meet her, but most of all he was pleased to look at her lush breasts. The plane passenger was angry. He asked what was wrong with the service of this airline. Why did they serve the coffee cold? The flight attendant came up to him and said that he had just asked for cold coffee several times. He said that he didn't care and asked for it to be hot. When the flight attendant was about to take the glass of coffee, the passenger poured it on his shirt. The coffee flowed all over his shirt. The man started yelling and asking what was wrong with her. He asked if she knew how expensive the shirt was. The flight attendant was confused and began to apologize. She said that she would immediately bring the man a towel. The passenger continued to shout at her and asked if she really thought he was going to wipe it off with a towel. He said the shirt was incredibly expensive and that there was no way to get that stain out. He screamed that she should compensate him for the damage. The passenger was forcibly pulling the innocent girl's hand to touch the stain on her shirt. But suddenly, Wang Zhen stood up for her and removed the passenger's hand. He started yelling at the passenger and said that he spilled coffee on himself. How can he blame someone else for it? The man behaved like an animal. He brazenly stood up and hit Wang Zhen and told him to get lost. Wang Zhen fell to the floor. The impudent fellow asked him what the four-eyed fellow was interfering with. He told him to mind his own business. The flight attendant asked the man not to start a fight. She asked how much the shirt cost and promised to reimburse him for everything. He replied that the shirt was from a new collection. He said that she owed him $20,000. The stewardess asked in surprise, "Was it really $20,000? Her eyes widened in surprise. Wang Zhen stood up from the floor and started shouting that this was extortion. He asked how this wretched shirt could cost so much money. Ham grabbed Van by the collar and called him a scoundrel. He threatened him to mind his own business if he valued his life. But Zhen was brave. He said that he would not run away in fear just because he seemed like a strong man. The impudent man lifted him into the air and told him to stop talking nonsense. Wang Zhen's toes did not reach the floor. The man told him to remind him of the order in society when he would beat his face with his fists. But at one point, his attention was distracted by the charming Madame Persic. She approached him and he turned his gaze to her. She said that she is an ambassador for the brand and can say with complete confidence that the shirt was purchased at a mass market. He told her to shut up and not to talk nonsense if she didn't know whether it was true or not. He looked into her eyes angrily. The other passengers started shouting that this bore had gone crazy. Everyone immediately realized that his shirt was a cheap fake. People were shouting that if he needed money, he should earn it. Everyone around was shouting that he was a scoundrel and his place was in hell. A man approached the man. He introduced himself as an air police officer. He began to ask what had happened here. People were shouting that this man should be detained immediately because he was cheating and even beat up a person. The passenger argued that this was not the case. The flight attendant shouted for Wang Zhen to wait a minute. She was dragging a suitcase with her things behind her. She came up to him and thanked him for his help. She said that he was very brave. She smiled sweetly at him and was sincerely grateful. She asked if he could leave her his phone number. She said she would like to treat him to dinner as a thank you when he was free. He gave her his number. Li Qing said he was jealous of him. He wondered why none of the girls asked for his phone number. Wang Zhen continued to chat with the stewardess. Peach looked into Li Qing's eyes. She asked him to go with her. He asked where. Peach didn't just invite him along. She obviously had something in mind. Li was a little wary. He asked if he was mistaken, and they came to the mall. She replied that yes, but she wanted to buy something not for herself, but for him. She looked at him intently. She said that manager Liu asked her to update Li Qing's sloppy clothes. He was confused. The t-shirt seemed quite good to him. Peach said it was a nice store and suggested he go and see what was there. The store consultant greeted the customers. Li began to refuse to buy clothes here because the store only sold formal suits, which he couldn't stand. Peach replied that manager Liu would tell Miss Lin about his irresponsibility if he refused to wear it. Li Qing desperately agreed to wear whatever she said. He asked her to pick something for him. She brought him a jacket and a pair of shoes, telling him to try them on. Li took the clothes and went into the fitting room. After a few minutes, he finished changing and shouted that he was ready. He came out of the dressing room and asked the girl how he looked. Peaches stared at him, looking him over from head to toe. She wondered what else she could change about him. She said the suit was nice and suited him. She offered to buy it. She also said that they would give him a haircut later and everything would be fine. Meanwhile, manager Liu was in the dressing room sorting through the clothes she could wear for the photo shoot. She was choosing lingerie that would highlight her maturity. She decided to wear a push-up bra. Suddenly, someone rang the bell. Liu became nervous because now she was not expecting guests at all. She began to hide things. She opened the door. It was Peach and Li Qing. She asked if they were done looking for clothes. Peach said that Li had a great figure, so choosing clothes for him was no problem. The tie was too tight. Li Qing asked if it was okay to wear a suit without a tie. He adjusted the tie over and over again. Manager Liu looked at the guy in the suit and didn't recognize him at all. She asked him who he was. He replied that he was Li Qing. Peach asked the manager if she had already prepared her dress for the evening. She replied that she had not yet, as she had some work to do, so she had to postpone it. Li Qing asked, was that why they decided to dress him in a suit? He threw the tie on the sofa. He asked, the banquet will be in the evening, won't it? In that case, he should take off this suit for now. He began to unbutton his jacket. Manager Liu looked at his perfect figure, sweat running down her face. It was as if she was fantasizing about something. At one point, she suddenly grabbed Li Qing's hand while he was undressing. She told him to change in the room. She added that he was a man after all, and asked him to show himself a little more respect. Li Qing didn't understand what she was talking about and asked, "What does respect have to do with it?" Peach asked, "Was the manager blushing?" The evening came and the trio went to the banquet. They stood in wonderful costumes and waited for the shows to begin. Manager Liu said that celebrities from all over the world have been invited here to give more publicity to the lingerie show that will take place later. She said there was another reason, and she even invited Lisa, who promised to appear at the show. Suddenly, a young and well-groomed guy loudly shouted the manager's name. He said that he had wanted to meet her for a long time. The manager rejoiced, saying that it was she who had sought out Mr. Lin. She said that she had heard that his company was already ready to enter the overseas market. The cute blonde who was standing with Lin asked him if the short guy standing in front of them was his competitor. Manager Liu looked at the girl angrily and asked who this fat pig called Shorty. She asked if she really wanted her tongue to be torn out. The sweet girl immediately became angry at these words. Mr. Lin began to calm the girls down. He said that Manager Liu actually had a great reputation. Li Qing was shocked and stood silently. He looked at everything that was happening and thought that in reality, Manager Liu didn't care about his reputation. At one point, he turned his gaze to the girl with blue hair. She had her back turned to him. She seemed very familiar to him. Li realized it was Lisa. He said she was a cutie no matter what she wore. Her charm outshone any designer clothes. Liza suddenly looked at the crowd and found Li Qing there. She immediately exclaimed. Li immediately became nervous and realized that she had noticed him. Sweat began to pour from his face. He did not know how to act. Lisa approached him and said that they had not seen each other for a long time, and she did not think that he would come to today's banquet. Li Qing said that it was true that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He smiled broadly at her and didn't know how to start a conversation. She said she had flown from far away to find something easily. She said Li knew she was looking for him. He was still nervous and said that he had urgent business to attend to and suggested that they talk a little later. He began to walk quickly away from the crowd, but Lisa shouted after him to stop. Li realized that he needed to run immediately. Manager Liu asked her if she knew her bodyguard. Lisa looked angrily at Li Qing running away. She asked the managers if it was true that he was working as a bodyguard for her company. She immediately added that she now agreed to participate in Liu's show. The manager was very surprised because her previous requests had been refused, but now she agreed. Liza said that she would not let Li Qing escape so easily. She smiled slyly, as if she was planning something. The manager stood behind and was at a loss. The manager asked Li what kind of relationship he had with Lisa. He replied that it was nothing. He just helped her once. Huo Yan asked him to do him a favor and ask her for a couple of autographs. His brother really likes her. Manager Liu felt important because she thought he was addressing her. She said that if he asked her nicely, she would do it. Peach suggested discussing everything tomorrow, since it was already late and time to sleep. Everyone went to rest. It was deep night. The moon brightly illuminated the streets. A charming girl climbed onto the roof of a tall building. She was wearing a latex suit that hugged her lovely breasts. Her gaze was serious, as if she was preparing to break into someone's apartment. The fat guy with the pigtail told his sister to be careful because her victim had a bodyguard. She replied that she knew. She said that no matter how long it took her, she would carry out the orders she was given. Manager Liu was fast asleep in her room. She was snoring lightly. She had no idea that an assassination attempt was being prepared. The female agent who came to kill Liu descended from one roof to another and landed. Li Qing heard a rustling sound outside the window. It was the sound of her landing. Li was wary and decided to check what happened. The girl realized that it was so easy to get inside because the doors and windows were open. She called Liu too reckless. She began to take out a sharp and well-sharpened knife from the case. She realized that the manager was sleeping and she could easily get to her. The girl told herself that she had a premonition that she would soon figure out the task assigned to her. At one point, the agent heard some rustling. She immediately became wary and wondered if there was someone else here. She immediately started running away because she risked failing her mission, which would directly affect her reputation. But suddenly, someone grabbed the running girl by the shoulder and stopped her. She stopped immediately and did not resist. She stood silently and thought that this man was fast since he managed to get close to her, and also strong since she could not break free. Li Qing continued to hold her shoulder tightly and began to ask her what she was doing here. The girl began to struggle. She resisted with all her might, and with a sharp movement she delivered a spinning blow to Li Qing. A serious fight began between two well-trained fighters. Qing delivered pinpoint kicks to his opponent. Memories came flooding back to Liza. In them, she told Li Qing to leave. He wouldn't help her. This task was impossible. He told her to stop talking nonsense and get up off her knees. He was determined and serious. He knew they could do it. He took her hand and ordered her to get up. He firmly declared that he would not let her die and would not leave her alone. Lisa's heart was drowning in sadness and sorrow because of these memories. It was very painful for her soul to remember this. The man entered the room where she was sitting and said that it was time for her to go to rehearsal. Liza stood up confidently and told herself that Li Qing was more important to her than anyone else. She was determined. She smiled slyly, as if in her head she had already won. She said that Li belonged only to her. At this moment, Li Qing felt something was wrong. He choked on the hot coffee and spat it out. Huoyan stood behind him, perplexed. Li wondered why a chill ran down his spine. Suddenly, a frightened Miss Lin ran into the room and began to ask him where Manager Liu was now. Li asked, "Did something happen?" Madame replied that Lisa had suddenly refused to participate in the lingerie show. She was very anxious. Manager Liu immediately entered the room. She was also stunned and did not know what caused Lisa's refusal. She asked to be given her contract, and in return she would talk to her and try to sort everything out. Li Qing thought about it and realized that Liu usually behaved like a crazy person, but when the time came, she could always be relied upon. Suddenly, a cute girl appeared behind him. It was An Qing. She called him and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. He turned around and was stunned by her appearance. Beads of sweat were still running down his face. He didn't know how to find the right words. Liu's manager tried to persuade Liza to do her a favor and perform at the show, since the contract was signed. She refused, promising to pay a penalty. Liza, seeing Li Qing, immediately exclaimed. She began to call him. He and An Qing turned to look at her, not understanding what she wanted. She approached Manager Liu, saying that if she gave her Li Qing, she would not cancel the contract. The manager and Li were stunned. An Qing said menacingly and confidently that Li Qing would not be Liza's. She adjusted her glasses and was prepared for anything. Lisa was stunned and didn't understand what she was talking about. Anne said that her company was clearly not involved in human trafficking. The blue-haired girl immediately approached her and asked who she was. She replied that she was a secretary. Lisa asked what a secretary would do here anyway. She said she would ask Manager Liu. An Qing replied that she didn't have to worry, and she could assure that Manager Liu would definitely listen to her. Liza asked angrily, "What does she mean by that? Does she like Li Qing too?" Anne said that she was only protecting the personal space of the company employees' people. Liza claimed that he would be completely safe with her, but she didn't mean this. Li Qing was angry. He cut in sharply, telling Lisa that she had to keep her promise. He added that he hadn't thought she was so stubborn. She said, offended, that he was the only one stubborn here, and no one else. She looked angrily at the floor. Li Qing added that Manager Liu has no right to control him and he will decide his own fate. Liza said she knew all this. She was just joking to scare Liu's manager. She said she would take part in the show. The lingerie show began. Manager Liu asked An Qing what she was doing there. She replied that she had come to meet a friend, so she was sitting with her. The girl said that everything was great and everyone had worked hard, and now the participants could have a snack and rest. Liza said that she was very tired. Li Qing praised her, saying that she had worked very hard today. She slumped down and began to hold on to Li Qing. He was surprised and asked if she was okay. She hugged him. Lisa said her legs were hurting terribly and asked the guy to stretch them. Li looked at her in surprise. An Qing watched all this happen and suddenly became angry, because she still had feelings for Li. She got angry and immediately jumped up. She ran towards Lisa and Qin. Manager Liu didn't understand what was wrong with her. Liza invited Li Qing to eat together. He asked her not to pull him too hard, and Qing watched all this. At one point she shouted for them to stop. She looked at them angrily. Lisa also looked at her angrily. An Qing asked for a little time, saying that she needed to discuss some work matters with Li Qing. Lisa said angrily that it was a break and they were going to get a snack. She said they could talk about work later. Anne told her that she could eat first if she was so hungry. She added that she was not holding her back. A verbal altercation began between the girls. Li Qing stood as if between two worlds. He was like a rope being pulled. Suddenly, Huoyan walked up to them and asked Li if he wanted to have lunch together while there was still break time. Li and Ho hugged each other and went to have a snack. Qing said that he was just in time. The girls looked after them, dumbfounded. Liza said that it was An Qing's fault because she was the one who scared Li Qing away. But she said that it was Liza's fault because she was the one who asked him to give her a massage and eat with her. The squabble continued. They spent a long time sorting things out and couldn't find the culprit. The break time was running out. Huoyan and Li Qing were in the dining room. Yan asked how long he had known Lisa. He replied that he had not known her very long. Li Qing said in frustration that she was very unrestrained and impudent. Sometimes he couldn't stand such behavior. The agents were looking at Li Qing's photo. One of them said that his photo had already been sent to headquarters. She said that the agent's next task was to gather information about him. She said that everything would be much easier from now on than it had been before. The agent agreed with her. A plump girl asked her sister why she always wore a mask. She asked if she felt stuffy. My sister asked a counter question. Why does she always wear glasses? Doesn't that make her vision worse faster? Suddenly a notification came to the laptop. The girl said that it was a message from headquarters. She immediately became wary. The agent asked what had happened. The girl was nervous. Sweat was running down her face. Something was wrong. She said that an order had come from headquarters stating that they had to retreat. She flew up at that very moment and started to gather her things. She gathered a bag of things and asked why her sister was standing. She said that they were allowed to rest, but she refused to go. She declared that under no circumstances would she give up halfway. The girls said that she was crazy, because even their superiors did not want to deal with Li Qing, since he was very dangerous. The agent said he was no longer their target. They had to take care of that girl. They had to use the opportune moment when Li was away. The girls said that her sister could continue to insist, but they were ordered to retreat. Otherwise, if anything happened, they would be the ones to suffer. She insisted that they obey the order and retreat, but the agent looked tiredly at the floor, not knowing what to do. She still decided to obey the order and retreat. The girls set up camp and slept in a tent. It was deep night outside. Something woke the agent up. Something suddenly alerted her. She seemed to hear some rustling nearby. She began to watch through binoculars and realized that her opponent had finally descended, and now she had the opportunity to deal with Manager Liu. She realized that as long as Li Qing was not around, it would be very easy to finish what she had started. She continued to watch through the binoculars. She noticed that he took his wallet out of his pocket. He was obviously going to buy something. She stopped following him. The agent realized that the stores were not that close, which meant she had some time to complete the task. She decided that this time would be quite enough for her. She decided not to waste a minute and to start acting. Li Qing walked down the street and didn't ask himself where the nearest store was. Manager Liu, unaware of anything, was enjoying her shower. She calmly soaped her body and hummed songs. The agent had already approached her victim. She pulled out her katana from its casing and prepared to strike. Manager Liu dropped the soap from her hands. This made her wary. She bent down to pick it up without suspecting anything. At that moment, from behind the curtain, the agent struck with a katana, thinking that she would immediately cut the manager with one blow. But she missed as Liu bent down to pick up the soap. The killer's eyes widened. The manager didn't understand what was happening. She heard a strange sound. She thought it was just a draft. The killer hid behind the curtain. Liu was wary because she clearly remembered closing the curtain. She found it all very strange. She filled the bath with bubbles. Wrapping her head in a towel, she lay down and decided to enjoy the warmth of the bath. The agent mentally said that Liu was just lucky. She began to approach the bathroom in order to deliver the finishing blow. She said that this time she could not even hope for luck. She was determined to kill. Suddenly the phone rang. The killer was ready to strike the manager. Manager Liu picked up the phone and asked who was calling her. The killer had to stop again and not kill her. Liu called Madame Peach to her. She asked if she was there. The agent was still hiding behind the curtain. Huoyan stood behind the door and said that Peach wasn't here. Killer looked at the door and realized that there was someone else here. She became wary and nervous because she thought the manager had one bodyguard. Huoyan asked if the manager needed help. He, like her, had no idea that the killer was in the house. Liu shouted at him to bring her a towel as she had forgotten it. The agent waited for the right moment. The manager shouted that the towel was on the bed in her room. Huoyan said he understood and would bring it right away. The killer thought to herself that there was no place to hide here. Liu was taking a bath and humming a song. She decided that she needed to go into another room and hide until the bodyguard returned. Huoyan shouted that he had brought a towel. The killer began to run into another room before she was noticed. Manager Liu shouted at him to come in and hand her a towel, saying the door was unlocked. Huoyan warned him that he was coming in. He came in and said that he had put a towel on the dresser. The killer had climbed to the ceiling before that and was praying that he wouldn't notice her. She was barely hanging on to the ceiling. It was hellishly difficult to hang on to it. She wanted Huoyan to leave the room as soon as possible. At one point, she slipped. The killer slipped a little and tore off her hair with a sharp movement. Yan did not understand what was happening and was a little shocked. The murderer's hair fell on his nose. He picked it up and began to think, how could a hair fall from the ceiling? He was surprised by this. Huoyan was a little angry and began to think about how this could happen. The killer was on the ceiling, hoping that she would not be noticed. He began to look around angrily and glance back. The killer was overcome with panic. She was afraid that she would be discovered. Suddenly, Li Qing came back. He shouted to Huoyan that he had bought some food. He was holding 2 bags of food in his hands. Hungry Yan was glad to see his friend, as now they could finally sit down and have a snack. He went into another room. The killer began to slowly slide down from the ceiling. She told herself that she was close to being discovered. She thought how good it was that she was wearing gloves with suction cups. Taking a deep breath, she lowered herself to the floor. The killer was confident. She jumped to the floor and was ready to deliver the decisive blow to the girl. But suddenly it turned out that Manager Liu had finished taking a bath and was standing behind her. The manager couldn't understand what was going on and why an unknown person was in her bathroom. The killer did not yet know that the target was behind her. She was calm and still confident that she had not been noticed. Liu immediately screamed throughout the house that she needed help. The bodyguards were eating dinner in the kitchen and immediately rushed to her. The manager continued to scream at the top of her lungs. She screamed that the killer was in the same room with her. The bodyguards came running to help. Liu ordered them to tie up the girl so that she could not run away and they could find out who she was. The assassin was tied up by bodyguards. She acted coolly and did not show any signs of fear. Huo Yan began to ask who she was, who sent her and why. Li Qing asked the agent if her goal was to kill Liu Qincheng. The tied-up girl continued to behave cold-bloodedly. She did not answer the interrogators' questions. They asked her not to pretend that she was deaf. Li Qing told Yan to take off her mask so they could see who she was. This made the girl angry. She began to threaten that if they dared to remove her mask, she would deal with them and their families. Li asked if she thought her threats would scare them. They mocked her. Qing told Huo Yan to take off his mask. The girl was angry with such behavior of the bodyguards. Their actions and mockery of her irritated her. She wanted to kill them. Huo Yan laughed at her, his hand reaching out to pull off her mask and reveal her identity. But at one point someone disturbed their peace. Someone rang the intercom several times. Li Qing and Huo Yan were surprised and wondered who it could be. They were not expecting guests at this time. There was a man in a police uniform standing behind the door. He greeted them and said that he was a policeman, showing his ID. He said a passerby told him he saw a suspicious person enter through a window, and he also suggested it might be a burglar. Li Qing told the policeman that he was just in time, because they had caught the criminal. He smiled broadly. The policeman made the arrest and said that they had nothing more to worry about, and that he would take the girl to the station. Li Qing thanked him for his help. The policeman and the girl left, slamming the door behind them. Li locked the door and exhaled calmly. The policeman turned out to be a bandit just like the girl. He told her that she needed to leave as quickly as possible. The killer's girlfriend took off her wig. She said she was lucky she got there in time. She asked if the agent knew what would have happened if she hadn't made it. She also added that it looked like a robbery, nothing to do with a serious crime, but if she was caught, all their past affairs could be revealed. The girl also said that it would be good if she got off with a life sentence. The killer said, upset, that she had not thought about that. They began to walk away from the building, saying that Lin was clearly asking for trouble. Li Qing was watching them from the window at that moment. He overheard the girls talking. They said that Lin should look for other people for this case, because their fee was not worth such a risk. Li Qing told his comrade Huo Yan what he had overheard. He asked if the boss's surname was Lin. Lin turned to Manager Liu. He asked if she remembered anyone with the surname Lin who might have a grudge against her. The manager replied that she only knew one such person. His name was Lin Hai. She said that he was Mr. Lin, whom they had met at the banquet. Their companies were competitors. Li Qing said that this was just competition, and he was so serious about it. He said that since the plan didn't work this time, he would try to stand in her way again. He also added that Manager Liu should be careful and not stay alone, as there would be more attempts to kill her. The lingerie show began. There were a lot of people around. They were having fun and dancing. It was very noisy. Li Qing watched all this and was surprised by the number of people who came to the lingerie show. He asked, "Because the show hasn't started yet?" Manager Liu said this is the biggest lingerie show in the history of this country. Celebrities, businessmen, and journalists from all over the world will come here. An Qing turned to Qinshin, saying that so many people might bring trouble. She asked if Qin had taken care of security. The manager replied that of course she had taken care of security. She said that Huo Yan had brought a large group of security guards, and everything would be fine. Ho, meanwhile, was calming down the people in the crowd, asking them to stop pushing each other, because the show hadn't started yet. A man in the crowd shouted that he loved Lisa. Li Qing watched all this and was surprised. He said to himself that he didn't think that Lisa had so many fans. Manager Liu told Liza that she came to check on her. She reminded her that she was participating in a show today and asked if everything was going according to plan. Lisa was in a good mood and with a smile on her face she replied that she had no problems. Everything was fine. Liu Qingchen said it was wonderful. She said she would go check on the other participants in the show. Liza asked Li Qing to stop. She said she needed to talk to him face to face. Li replied that now was not a good time to talk. He needed to follow Manager Liu to make sure she was safe. Lisa was upset that he was avoiding her. She asked if he really didn't like her that much. Li Qing didn't know how to answer her without offending her. He said that this was not what he wanted to tell her at all. Manager Liu interrupted him and said that they could talk while she waited for them outside. She slammed the door behind her. Liza was sad. She asked why Li Qing was avoiding her. She asked if he was hiding from her. After all, she had been looking for him for a long time. Li calmly told her that he was not only avoiding her, he was avoiding the life he had become accustomed to. He was cool. She asked fearfully why he was doing this, because everything was fine with him then? She said that he should know that from that moment on Li Qing interrupted her. He asked if she thought she liked him. He said that she just needed a man who would always protect her. He added that he protected her only because it was his mission. He said that he, whom she liked so much, existed only in her reflection. The long-awaited lingerie show was taking place. Fireworks were exploding all around. It was very colorful. People were having fun. Huoyan was delighted and said that he thought everything was going well. Li Qing asked him to be silent and feel it with all his heart. It was announced that the fashion show had come to an end. Everyone was thanked for their presence. The crowd began to disperse little by little. Lisa stood aside and didn't talk to anyone. She was very sad and didn't feel like having fun at all. Anqing said that the show went well. Manager Liu agreed with her. She said that now she can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Liu told Liza that the company was inviting her to a celebratory dinner, and also, she was planning to give her a bonus for participating in this show. Lisa replied that the manager was flattering her, because all this was a success of teamwork, and not hers alone. The manager looked at the happy crowd of people and said that she had more and more fans. She replied that this was not bad. Their attention was distracted by a man who was running towards Lisa with all his might. He had a bouquet of roses in his hand. He was shouting that he loved her. A short, plump boy came up to her. He handed her a bouquet of flowers and said that he was her biggest fan. He repeated once again that he loved her with all his heart and asked if he could take a photo with her. Li Qing, watching this scene, noticed something strange about this young man. His eyes were surprised. He asked the guy to stop. He asked with a serious face what he had in his pocket. There was noise all around. Li asked the boy to empty his pockets and show them the contents to make sure he was not a threat. At the same time, the masked man approached him. Li Qing continued to tell the guy to take everything out of his pockets. The guy had a knife. Li immediately began to ask why he needed it. While everyone's attention was focused on the guy with the knife, an unknown masked man approached Li Qing from behind. His gaze was treacherous. Anqing turned to look at the stranger. She immediately wondered who it was. She had never seen this person before. The suspicious man had a knife in his hand, and immediately panicked. She didn't know what to do. She continued to worry, sweat pouring down her face. She wondered if it was the man who would stab her with a knife. And so it happened. The man did stab her with a knife. Li Qing didn't understand what was happening. He felt as if someone had hugged him from behind. He was dumbfounded. It turned out that it was Anqing who hugged him around the waist. He was stunned and frightened by such an unexpected action. He asked what happened and why An hugged him. She remained silent and continued to hold on to his body. At one point, she began to fall rapidly to the floor. Her back was completely covered in blood. Li Qing was deeply shocked. He didn't understand what was happening. He immediately started shouting her name. It turned out that the masked stranger wanted to stab Li, but Anqing covered him with her body. Her last words were that he was in danger. Anqing fell to the ground and stopped showing signs of life. Blood was still flowing from her back as before. Li Qing started shouting and asking if anyone had a phone. He asked for an ambulance to be called as soon as possible. The ambulance came and took Anqing away. Lisa and Li sat in the hospital, waiting for news from the doctors. Lisa suddenly said that Li had said that he was avoiding his usual life. It was as if she wanted to clarify something with him. She added that there were rumors that the killer's target was him, not Anqing. Li, at this moment, showed no emotion and remained silent. Liza said that in the end, Anqing decided to protect him and take the blow herself. Li still remained silent. She continued to say that the anger that arose because of him touched the people around him. Lisa also added that no matter how well he hides, punishment will inevitably catch up with him. Suddenly, a doctor in a green coat came out of the operating room. He said that the operation was over. Li Qing immediately jumped up. He began to ask the doctor how Anqing was feeling. The doctor replied that the danger had passed. He said they put 16 stitches in her wound, and if she recovered, she would be back to normal in a few months. Lisa thought silently. She told herself that with such a character, Li would never have a normal life. She felt a little sorry for him. Anqing was in the hospital room. She was sleeping with her hair down. There was no one next to her. At one point, she opened her eyes and tried to figure out where she was. Her head hurt after all this. It turned out that Lisa was also in the room. She asked if she was awake. Lisa was sitting on a chair next to Anne's bed. She asked her if she wanted to drink, and Ching was a little scared because she didn't know where she was. She sat down and began to look around, trying to figure everything out. She felt a little uneasy. Lisa handed her a glass of water. She said that Li Ching was not here. The anesthesia was wearing off, and he went downstairs to get food and drinks. An Ching was reassured by her words and took the glass of water from her hands. She thanked Lisa for taking care of her. Anne was sad because she didn't want things to turn out this way. Lisa started saying that if she were in her place, she would have done the same. She also said that she didn't mean anything like that, but just wanted to say that he deserved it. She said that if she wasn't mistaken, Li had once helped An Ching. She continued to say what she thought. Anne must have realized that Li wouldn't help if he knew they would have to help him in return. An Ching replied that she knew all of this. She just didn't want him to get hurt. She was still in love with him. Manager Liu asked if An really wanted to leave the hospital. The operation had only been done a couple of days ago. She said she should rest some more. An Ching replied that the hospital was too boring. She would rather rest at home. Besides, it had been a long time since she had taken a vacation. Liza continued to think about this situation. She was still surprised by An Ching's behavior. She wondered when she started showing such feelings towards Li Ching. Li asked Liza if Anne had left. She replied that yes, she had left. Liza began to tell him that An Ching said that she wanted to go home and rest because the hospital was too boring. She said that she would go back tomorrow too. Li Ching was upset. She said that if she had the chance, she would find him again. She told herself that she didn't want to blame him for this. An Ching sat in the chair. She thought and told herself that she didn't want to ask Li Ching to love her just because she was injured. When she recovered, she would meet him again. It was terribly cold outside. People passing by complained that the weather was terrible. They wondered why it had gotten so cold. Li Ching came to the right house. He started to ring the bell. He rang several times and waited for someone to come out to him. But Auntie Wang, as usual, did not hear the bell. Li began to shout with all his might for her to hear and open the door for him. He heard the door creak. It turned out that the door was not locked, and he could not waste time on shouting. He cautiously entered the house and began to shout, "Why is Auntie Wang with the door open?" He began to call Sister Hua. No one responded to his cries. He remained wary and continued walking down the hallway of the house. He entered the hall and realized that there was no one in the house. He wondered what could have happened during his absence. He found an unknown substance on the floor. He touched it and smelled it. It turned out to be dried porridge. He walked over to this pot on the stove and opened it and smelled the broth. It had obviously gone bad. Li realized they hadn't been here for days, but at one point, he looked back warily and discovered a note on the door that was attached with a knife. The note said that if he dared to report it to the police, Auntie Wang and Sister Hua would be killed. After reading this, Li Ching became furious. Fury and anger clouded his mind. He decided that he would destroy everyone who had offended them. One of the bandits suggested to his comrade to go back, because they had been sitting there for a long time, but still had not picked up a single customer. The comrade suggested that he sit until 3 o'clock in the morning. The bandit complained of the cold. The cold seemed to burn his skin. One of the bandits said that they had to be patient, because if they came back, the boss would kill them on the spot. Suddenly, a man completely covered in clothes approached the bandits. His eyes were covered. His face was impossible to recognize. The bandits were surprised by the arrival of this man. He asked them to find out for him where the boss of the gang in the colorful shirts was now. One of the guys cheekily asked why he would tell this information to some stranger passing by. The stranger handed him 100 monetary units. He was sure that this would be enough to buy the information. But the guy said that this was not enough for such information. He demanded to add another $500 on top. The stranger agreed and handed over the money. The gangster boss was sitting in a club. He was having a nice time with a girl. She was telling him that he was amazing because he drank so many cocktails. The boss stood up and said that he was going to the toilet, and when he returned, he would fight again. The girl asked him to come back quickly. The bandit, having reached the toilet, said to himself that he almost died while he waited until the toilet. He began to relieve himself. The bandit, not worrying about anything, was doing his business and humming a song. He was drunk and he was having a lot of fun. But at one moment, unexpectedly, an unknown person grabbed his throat with a knife from behind. The bandit immediately became wary. The stranger turned out to be Li Ching. He asked the scoundrel if he was the one who kidnapped Sister Hua and Auntie Wang. The bandit responded to him in fear that he had taken the wrong one. Li Ching did not hear what he said and asked again what the bandit had said. He made a small cut on the bandit's throat, saying that he was giving him one last chance to confess who had kidnapped them. The bandit almost started crying from fear. He said he would tell everything. He begged to spare him and not kill him. Li Qing immediately grabbed the frightened bandit by the shoulder and jumped over the window with him. He decided that he would force him to show him the way. It was the middle of the night. They got into the car, and Li, holding a knife to the bandit's throat, ordered him to take him to his aunt and sister. The bandit did not resist and agreed to it. They arrived at the right place. The bandit assured his older brother not to worry. He said he just wanted to scare them. He had no choice. He kept making excuses and saying that his boss told him he had to buy the house, so that's what he did. They continued into the room where Auntie Wang and Sister Hua were being held. The bandit opened the door leading into the room. He still made excuses, saying that if Li Qing hadn't come today, he would have sent them back tomorrow anyway, since he wasn't that cruel. They continued walking. The bandit said that a few more meters and they would reach the right place. But suddenly, the bandit realized that this was his only chance to escape from Li Qing. His gaze was malicious. At that moment, lightning struck. The thunder was very loud. Li Qing's attention was drawn to the sound of thunder. The bandit was cunning. He took advantage of this moment and quickly slipped into the crack near which he was located. Li Qing didn't have time to react. The bandit slipped away and locked himself in. Li tried to lure her out. He knocked and shouted for him to come out. The bandit mocked Li and said he was an idiot. The door was made of stone. He wouldn't be able to open it. Li said the bandit would stay there until he died of hunger, but he just kept mocking him. The gangster boss was in his office, calmly stuffing tobacco into his pipe. He wasn't worried about anything. Suddenly, his subordinate knocked on the door. He walked in. The boss asked, "How are things with Li Qing?" The subordinate said that the people around him were under their control. Now all that was left was to wait until he himself came here. The boss said coldly that Li was acting like this because of his insignificant strength. He said that Li Qing should be eliminated because he was sticking his nose into other people's business. Li, meanwhile, was outside in the rain, trying to interrogate the bandit. He asked, "Sister Hua and Auntie Wang aren't here, right?" The bandit replied that of course they weren't here. He said that he had expected Li to follow him from the start. He had planned to lure him here. He said that, in fact, they were kidnapped only to catch Li Qing. He added that he had messed with the wrong people. The bandit mocked Li Qing. He said that now he would have to die. Li was angry at his mockery. He smiled sarcastically and said that he would take care of his sister, because he had been holding himself back for a long time. Rage and anger filled Li Qing's mind. Out of anger, he immediately tore his jacket and threw it away. The insignificant bandit kept saying that Sister Hua had a great figure, and he wanted to try her when he grabbed her, but she kicked back. Li Qing's eyes were filled with rage, preparing to destroy the bandit and all his assistants for Sister Hua. The bandit's mouth did not close. He said that since he was stuck here for now, he could not do all this now, so he would show her what he could do when he returned. Li Qing gathered all his strength into his fist. He remembered everything that Uncle Feng taught him in prison. He was preparing to deliver a crushing blow. The ignoramus standing behind him sensed something was wrong. He became slightly wary and wondered why Li Qing was silent. A crushing blow was dealt. The stone door was destroyed, its fragments flying in all directions. The bandit was blown away by the shockwave. He did not expect such a turn of events. Li was angry and furious. The eyes of the ignoramus were filled with fear. He understood that he would be punished for everything he dared to say. Li Qing calmly walked up to the bandit's body, staring at him as if he was eating him away with his gaze. The bandit was lying on the floor, completely bewildered. He asked how this was even possible and how he had destroyed the wall. Meanwhile, Sister Hua was in the bandit's den. She was served breakfast, but she didn't want to even touch it. One of the bandits asked why she wasn't eating. Did she really want to die of hunger? He looked at her in surprise. He told her to eat what was served to her. Hua remained silent and looked at the floor in anger. She wanted to destroy them all. The bandit said that if she did not obey him, he would kill the old lady in the next room. Auntie Wang, it turned out, was there too. Nervous Hua told them to let Auntie go. She agreed to eat. She looked at the bandit with anger. She said that since they needed her house, she was willing to sell it. But Auntie Wang had nothing to do with it. The bandit was cold-blooded. He brought a plate of scrambled eggs and told Hua to eat her breakfast in silence. He threatened that if she refused to eat breakfast, he would cut off the old woman's hands and force her to eat it. One of the bandits approached the boss and said that someone was calling him. He took the phone from the hands of his subordinate. He picked up the phone and asked who was calling him. His expression was calm as before, but no one answered him. He asked that his time not be taken up and that they talk to the point as soon as possible. Li Qing called him. He asked if it was Wang Day, and also if it was he who was holding Sister Hua and Aunt Wang hostage. Qing said that he was willing to exchange them for his subordinate. The bandit was slightly wary of this statement. Li Qing said that if he did not believe it, he could pass the phone to his subordinate. Li also told Wang to name a time and place so that they could make the exchange of people. Wang declared his throat. He said that if he wanted to save them, he had to find him himself and save them. The subordinate approached and nervously asked his superior what had happened and what they had told him on the phone. Van hung up. He said it was all very interesting and smiled slyly. It was as if he was preparing for something. Li Xing realized that since the bandit had hung up, the negotiations were over. They had not been successful. Li began to think. He hoped that Sister Hua and Auntie Wang were safe and sound. He was worried about them. He got angry and realized that they better be okay. Otherwise all these bandits would pay for everything with their blood. The bandit who had said a lot of bad things about Li was lying on the floor. He couldn't say a word. Li Qing kicked his opponent as he lay down, asking him where his loved ones were being held. The bandit spat blood and said that he would not tell him about it under any circumstances. He asked if he really thought he could achieve anything by holding him hostage. He told Li to just wait until his woman died. Li Qing sternly told the bandit that his senior didn't care about him, and no one was in a hurry to save him, so why was he protecting him? The bandit asked what kind of nonsense Li Qing was talking about. He said that he was sure that his elder would never abandon him. He continued by saying that they had chosen this path and they knew the consequences. He said that a hero lover like Li should know that. The bandit felt very bad after the beatings. He spat on the floor. He almost lost consciousness every minute. The guy said that he was looking for a disgusting person like Li Qing. He told him to just wait for those two to die. They went to the bandit's house. Li searched everywhere. He rummaged through all the closets. The bandit said he had nothing that would interest him. Li Qing didn't listen to him. He continued to search for information. He came across some notes and began to read them. The bandit asked if he really wanted to find any clues. He said that Li would not hurry. Hua and Wang would die. Li Qing was angry at what he heard. He threw the stack of papers onto the table with all his might. There was a loud bang. He immediately pounced on the bandit, grabbed him by the collar, and began to interrogate him about where his relatives were being held. He threatened that if he did not tell, he would beat him to death. The bandit said without fear that he would not be able to tell anything if he died. And he added that if the elder learned of death, these ladies would not survive either. Li Xing looked at him angrily. He knew that he was right. He couldn't beat him because he lacked information. It was late at night. Li decided to ask his old friend, Captain Tang Xin, for help. She was sitting at the station at the time, making noodles. Suddenly the phone rang. The captain was eating noodles, but she had to pick up the phone. She asked who was calling her. She recognized Li Qing's voice. She was surprised by his call, especially at such a late hour. She asked if he really had a new number. Captain Tang Xin stirred the delicious noodles while talking to Li. She asked him why he was calling her. She was alarmed by the question that was asked of her. Li asked if she knew where Wang Day was. Tan asked how he knew where he was. She became wary and nervously asked if he was in trouble. Li asked her not to worry. He decided to lie to her that his neighbor's son had fallen into bad company and was now working for Wang, and she asked him to help her get her son back. He said he didn't know where Wang Day was, he just wanted to find him and bring him home. Tang listened carefully. She said that in that case she would send Wang Day's address right away. She asked to wait a little. Captain Tang Xin sent the address to Li Qing. She felt uneasy. She felt like he was lying to her. She told herself that she hoped Li hadn't gotten into trouble. The feeling of unease wouldn't go away. In the middle of the night, someone rang the doorbell of the house where Li Qing was staying. That person turned out to be his friend, Huo Yan. Lai walked over to the door and opened it, telling Yan to come in. His face was tired and angry. Huo Yan asked why he asked him to come at such a late hour. He was wary. He asked if he had finally gotten himself a new phone. Li Qing remained silent and looked at the bandit with a cold expression. The bandit was tied up and sitting on a chair, his mouth taped shut. Huo Yan asked, "Who is he?" Li Qing said that he called him because he wanted him to do something for him. He asked him to keep an eye on this man and not let him escape. Huo Yan nervously asked what was going on. He asked if this was considered kidnapping. He was excited. It was deep night outside. Li Qing was telling Yan the story of how it all came to this. He finally finished his story. He told Ho that all he needed to do now was simply control the bandit, and he would go in search of his loved ones. Yin understood his task and kindly agreed to help his friend. He mocked the bandit, asking if he wanted him to force him to give up the address. Li Qing said that there was no point in trying to get the address from him, since he had deliberately led him into a trap before, and there was a chance that he would deceive him again. Huo Yan asked, "Does Li want to go and look for his loved ones himself?" He suggested to him, maybe he should go with him. Li Qing put on his jacket and said that he could handle all of this himself since he didn't want to drag more people into it. Li began to interrogate another bandit. He believed that he definitely had information, since he was sitting on the street. The bandit swore that he knew nothing. Qing asked, Even in his situation, he still didn't want to tell him anything. He laughed at him, calling him stubborn. He dumped the bloody things out of his pocket. He told the bandit to look at them, knowing that he knew about them. The bandit was stunned. He said it was an ID card, an amulet of Big Brother. He said that the amulet was always with him. Li Qing continued to press the bandit's psyche, saying that since he recognized the amulet, he would recognize this too. He threw the bloody round object to the ground. The bandit was shocked. He screamed in fear and could not contain his emotions. Li asked if he could really recognize his comrade's amulet, but could not recognize the eyeball. The bandit's emotions were running high. He was on his knees, beaten and exhausted. He said he had told everything he knew. His comrade's eyeball was lying on the ground. The bandit begged Li Qing to let him go. He was terribly scared. Suddenly, Li decided to play on his psyche one last time, and with a sharp movement stepped on his eyeball. The bandit was still kneeling and thanking Li Qing for sparing him and leaving him alive. But at one point, he said that this smell was painfully familiar to him. He shouted that it was a pig's eye. Li Qing sternly declared that if he did not tell him the location of his loved ones, a human eye might end up there. One of Wang Day's companions asked if he was sure that they didn't have to worry about his younger brother. He said that Li Qing could do anything to him. Wang confidently said that he couldn't do it. If Li Qing wanted to save these two people, he wouldn't do anything to his younger brother. He asked his comrade if he had calmed down the two women. His gaze was cold and stern. The subordinate shouted that of course he had calmed them down as he had been ordered. Wang Day praised him. He looked out the window and said that he thought Li Qing would find them very soon. He would come for his death. It was a hot day. Two unknown people surrounded the house where the younger Wang was being held. They tried to do everything silently. One of them said that some sounds were heard in the house. It seems that they were not mistaken and arrived at the right place. The second guy asked how many people he thought were there and if they would need reinforcements. The man said that it wouldn't be necessary. It was a great opportunity. He said that they didn't need to invite anyone else to share the profits with them. Huo Yan, unsuspecting, continued to watch the hostage. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Yan became wary. He wondered who could be calling at this time. He started walking towards the door. He thought, perhaps it was Li Qing who had returned from looking for his loved ones. He walked to the door to look through the peephole. Through the peephole, he saw a young guy who introduced himself as a food delivery man. He was friendly enough. Huo Yan was nervous because he hadn't ordered food delivery. He thought the delivery guy had just gotten the wrong address. He turned and started to walk back to the hostage. But suddenly, an unknown person put the barrel of a gun to the back of his head. He ordered him not to move. The bandit said that if he dared to move even a little, his head would be shot right there. Ho was stupefied. The bandit threatened that if the food delivery man had heard anything, he would be killed too. Yan was nervous. The bandit shouted to his accomplice Chiang to untie Brother Hua as quickly as possible while he held Yan at gunpoint. The rope on Hua's body finally fell off. He stood up from the chair, feeling a little uncomfortable at first. He praised the bandits, saying that they were cool because they found him quickly. He promised them a good reward for their work. The bandits still had their guns trained on Huo Yan. Embarrassed by Hua's praise and compliments, Bandit Chung handed the phone to Hua, saying that he needed to make a call. He calmly handed the phone over. Brother Hua asked who he needed to call and why. He looked at the bandit in surprise. Chiang said that Wang Day said that there was no point in leaving those two women alive when Hua was safe. He said that Wang's problem was solved, so he needed to make a phone call and notify his elder brother, and the women would be buried alive. Hua smiled slyly and was surprised by this. He was happy with this outcome, since he was now free. He had outplayed Li Qing. He made a phone call and informed his brother that he was okay. There was a thunderstorm outside. The bandits packed the women in a bag and started carrying them somewhere. One of the women was kicking and trying to get out of the bag. The bandit was shouting at her. He was threatening to hit her if she didn't stop doing it. Sister Hua, who was in the bag, tried with all her might to break free. The girl was crying. Her mouth was taped. The bandits threw the bags into the trunk of the truck. It was terribly cold and scary in the trunk. They left the bags and started to leave. The women tried to break out of the bag with all their might. The bandits got into the truck. One of them asked if they could do that at all. He said he was scared because it was murder. The truck driver asked him what was scary about. He said that this job was a chance for them to make a name for themselves. They couldn't turn down such assignments. There was still a thunderstorm outside. The truck was stopped by police officers. They asked for the driver's license and ID card. The bandit started shouting that he hadn't been drinking. The officer said that he hadn't accused him of being drunk. He asked for his documents again. The policeman told Captain Tan that she did not have to go with them as it was just petty theft. The captain ordered him to just do his job and ignore her presence. She said she had little to do, so she decided to take a little rest. Tang Xin thought. She told herself that she felt uneasy after Li Qing's call. She hoped that nothing had happened to him. The bandits decided to take advantage of the moment, and while the police were talking, the driver got into the car and started to drive away. The second bandit started screaming in anger. He was screaming that there was a police post ahead and they couldn't get away that easily. He was yelling at his accomplice, who was the driver. What was he waiting for? He was yelling at him to turn around. The driver pressed the accelerator pedal to the floor. Captain Tang Xin stopped thinking because she heard a strange sound. She turned around and immediately became alarmed. She started shouting that something was wrong with that truck. She ordered it to be stopped immediately. The truck driver did not stop. He continued to drive at full speed. The truck made a loud noise. One of the bandits shouted that they were being chased, so they needed to get out of here as quickly as possible. The police car was chasing the truck at full speed. The truck driver tried to remain calm. The red-haired bandit shouted at the driver to go even faster, as the police were almost on top of them. The driver angrily shouted at him that he knew everything without him. He asked him not to shout at him and to shut his mouth. He pressed the gas pedal with all his might. The truck was racing as fast as it could. The driver could barely hold the steering wheel because the speed was insane. The police car did not lag behind the bandits for a minute. They chased the truck at the same pace. At one point, the truck passed a traffic light. The light was red. According to the rules, it was necessary to stop. The driver ignored traffic rules and drove through a red light, almost getting into an accident. He honked his horn so that other road users would give way to him. The driver's accomplice was dumbfounded. Suddenly, a collision occurred. One of the drivers did not have time to react to the moving truck. There was still a terrible thunderstorm outside. It perfectly emphasized the terrible collision that had taken place. Various parts of the car flew in all directions after the collision. Human blood flowed on the asphalt. Someone's phone was still intact. Suddenly, someone started calling it. There was a loud ringing sound. It turned out that the bandit Hua had called him. He wanted to know how his subordinates were doing. No one answered his call. He became nervous and wondered why no one was picking up the phone. This made him wary. He approached the two bandits and asked if they dared to play a prank on him. They looked at him in fear. He asked how this was possible. Xiang, stuttering with fear, replied that perhaps the connection in the mountains was not very good, which was why no one was picking up the phone. Huoyan looked at his opponents angrily. He decided to take advantage of the moment and abruptly snatched the gun from the bandit's hands. The bandit didn't have time to understand anything. Ho suddenly pulled his hand and the pistol ended up in his hands. He didn't think, and without any doubts, he shot the scoundrel Hua in the leg. The bullet went through the leg. Hua immediately began to scream with all his might in pain. The pain was unbearable, as if the bullet had burned through his leg entirely. He struck his opponent with a precise elbow blow, who tried to stop him and snatch the pistol from his hands. Xiang tried to knock the gun out of his hands. He hit Yan in the back of the head and took the gun into his own hands. This action angered Ho, and he angrily attacked the bandit in order to grab the gun and protect himself. He grabbed the gun and began to pull it towards himself, but Cheng resisted with all his might. He did not want to give up the gun. Huoyan decided not to stand on ceremony with his opponent. He struck Qian in the wrist, thereby breaking his bone. He snatched the gun from the bandit's hands. Chiang fell to the floor, his wrist in pain, and he couldn't understand how Ho had managed to do it. Yan, having snatched the gun, began to spin it on his index finger like a basketball. He pointed his gun at the bandits, ordering them not to move. The bandits did not resist and obeyed. He began to ask where Li Qing's loved ones were now. His gaze was threatening. He tied up the bandits. They didn't make a sound and ignored his questions. This angered Ho. He did not stand on ceremony with the scoundrels and decided to punish them for their silence. He shot one of them in the leg. The bandit could barely hold back tears from the hellish pain he received from the pistol shot. The bullet burned his leg. One of the bandits started shouting that he would tell everything. He said that they had taken them to the western suburban mountains to prepare them for burial. Hugh realized that he was powerless on his own, so all he could do in this situation was just call the police. And he also needed to call Li Qing about it. But at one point, Huo Yan remembered that Li Qing still didn't have a phone. He wondered why he still couldn't buy one for himself. It was a gloomy, menacing day outside. Li Qing stood in front of the entrance to Wang Day's house. Wang's subordinate told him with fear that Li had found them and was already there. Day was not embarrassed to learn this. He said with a slight mockery that he had finally waited for Li Qing to arrive. He was a little happy about it. An angry Li Qing came to take his loved ones. Nothing could stop him. He destroyed the door. He began to easily beat the guards one after another who attacked him. He was merciless. The guards' bones broke one after another. Blood gushed from everywhere. Li felt no pity. He was merciless. Li Qing mercilessly slaughtered all his opponents. The guards were lying at his feet, as if it was meant to be. Behind him stood the cunning Wang Day. He held his hands behind his back and clapped his hands to attract Li's attention. Li turned his gaze angrily to his main enemy. His gaze was terrifying and oppressive. Wang De called him amazing. He was even a little surprised that Li was able to take out his men so quickly. He praised him, saying that he had very good skills. He said that if Li Qing wanted to work for him, he would bring back those 2 women. Li Qing could not stand the humiliation and nonsense that Wang De was spouting. He started running towards him as fast as he could. He delivered a sharp sidekick to his opponent's jaw. Wang did not have time to react to such a blow. Li Qing delivered another series of blows to the opponent's body. Wang De was unable to resist him. Li continued to beat his opponent mercilessly with all his might. He did not stop for a single second. Wang tried to defend himself from the series of blows that Li Qing was so successful in. He tried to block. He tried to create support on his legs in order to stand in the unequal fight. A loud crunching sound was heard. Wang De was immediately startled, as the sound seemed painfully familiar to him. He was wary. He looked into his opponent's eyes. He was surprised by the blow that Li Qing demonstrated. He was amazed that his power went through the bones and broke the floor. He remembered that he was the only person who could do such a thing. Wang De admitted that he didn't expect that the secret book he spent so much time searching for was actually in Li Qing's possession. Li asked what he was even talking about. His gaze was still brutal and menacing. Wang De asked, "So Li Qing really has a secret book?" He said that it was just wonderful. He immediately decided to demonstrate what he was capable of. He began to gain speed with all his might. Li Qing was shocked by the enemy's speed, as he had not expected this from him at all. Wang De's speed was like the speed of light. He was so fast that it seemed like he was creating clones. Li panicked, telling himself that the enemy was getting faster and faster. He couldn't see him clearly. Wang De began to run around the enemy at a crazy speed. Li Qing was seized with panic. He did not do anything to resist him. Li couldn't believe he was so fast. He had a feeling there were more people ahead of him. At an unexpected moment, the enemy struck Li Qing. Blood began to spurt from his neck. Li was stunned. He grabbed the bleeding site. He didn't understand what was happening. He didn't even notice how he attacked. Li Qing realized that defeat was near, because the enemy had almost hit his artery. He was one step away from death. Wang De launched another, this time a precise blow at Li Qing with furious speed. He did not have time to react. The bloodied Li began to fall to the ground. He had no strength to resist. The blood gushed out without stopping. The amount of blood was unbearable. It almost completely covered Li Qing, even going onto his sneakers. But Li managed to stay on his feet. He realized that at this rate the enemy would just play with him until he slowly died. He needed to grab him. If he could do that, everything would be much easier. Wang De told Li Qing that if he gave him the secret book, he would let him live. Li ignored him. Wang asked if he didn't want to stay alive and thought he could escape from him. He suggested that he give up because no one could beat his speed. But at an unexpected moment for Wang, Li Qing managed to grab his hand. He managed to do it with a sharp movement. Li Qing stopped him. Wang De immediately panicked and wondered how this was possible. His eyes were filled with fear. Li Qing decided not to waste a minute. He caught his opponent off guard and decided to throw him over his shoulder. Vanda, without having time to understand anything, flew over his shoulder. He was amazed by such combat assistance from the enemy. He fell to the floor, hitting the back of his head on the floor. Li Qing was cruel to his opponent. Blood was oozing out of Wang's mouth. He no longer had the strength to resist the enemy. He was powerless. Li Qing had no intention of stopping. He grabbed his opponent's hand, intending to break his wrist. Wang De's bone was successfully broken at the elbow. He felt hellish pain in his arm, as if it was being torn from the inside. Wang De found the strength to jump to his feet. He was dizzy and could barely stand. He decided that he would not surrender to the enemy so easily. Li Qing stared at the enemy's eyes, expecting anything. Weakened, Wang De asked Li how he managed to grab his hand and stop him. There was no emotion on his face. Li Hing replied that he was not as fast as Di, and it was impossible for him to catch him. But if he could predict the direction of his movements, the task would be much easier. Blood was still flowing from Li's body. It was flowing from the sleeve of his jacket onto his palm, and it was a dark red color. Wang asked if he could really predict the direction of his next move. He asked if he had learned it from the secret book. Li Qing remembered that the secret book actually had a method for predicting the direction. He hadn't mastered it yet, but had only predicted the direction from Wang's voice. He realized that he had managed to grab the enemy this time because he was lucky, but he was not sure if he could do it again. Day wanted to obtain this excellent skill. He began to pick up speed and said that he really wanted to see this wonderful skill in action. His expression was frightening. He continued to pick up speed and kept repeating that he wanted to see the skill. Li Qing was alarmed. He was very wary and nervous because the enemy could strike at any moment. Wang De circled around him at high speed. He said that he would let Li go if he gave him the secret book. Li Qing was wary. Wang said that if he did not hurry, his women might be killed. The police were at the hospital. Captain Tang Xin called Huo Yan and asked if he knew where Li Qing was now. Huo Yan understood what was going on after talking with Tang Xin for a few minutes. His face was very serious. He said that time was short. They both needed to be rescued quickly. Captain Tan told him there was no need to search as the women were currently in the hospital. She told Huo Yan that she would find him in a while. She hung up. Huo Yan was worried. Meanwhile, the bandits involved in the kidnapping of women were being detained in the mansion. The police escorted the arrested bandits to the car in order to then take them to the police station. Captain Tang Xin asked Huo Yan if he knew where Li Qing was currently. Ho replied that if he was not mistaken, Li had gone to look for Wang Day. He might be in danger. He was very serious. The weather was clear, warm and sunny. Huo Yan and Captain Tang Xin came to the house where Wang Day lived. Hugh said that the 3 people they caught said that Wang Day was in this mansion, which meant that Li Qing should be here too. Without thinking twice, they knocked down the front door and entered the room where Van was supposed to be hiding. They passed through room after room, coming across Van's guards lying lifeless on the floor. Behind a wooden post lay a powerless man, coughing and slowly bleeding. They turned their attention to him. The man quietly asked who these people had come for. He could not speak loudly because he was bleeding. Huo Yan nervously asked, "Where's Li Qing?" Captain Tang Xin was standing behind, nervous and angry. Half of the man's face was covered in blood. He asked who Li Qing was. He said that just now someone broke in and the beasts attacked them, and then ran after someone. They immediately rushed to look for their friend. This man was Vandy, who pretended. He decided to outwit them. He smiled wickedly. It was deep into the night. Li Qing ran headlong to quickly find his sister Hua and Aunt Wang. Wang Di seemed to have penetrated his consciousness and said, "Did Li really want to know where he buried the women?" He said that he shouldn't worry because it was useless to search. Li Qing could barely breathe. He was too exhausted. He stopped to catch his breath and continued on his way. His eyes were shrouded in excitement. He was out of breath. Li was very anxious. He was afraid of being late. Wang Di's voice said that he buried them under 2 lotus trees on the mountain. He said that there would be a mark on the stone near that place. Li Qing saw a stone with a mark on it. He fell to his knees from exhaustion and realized that the burial place was here. He began digging with all his might, hoping to find women buried alive. He shouted his sister's name, thinking that she would answer. The bloodied Wang Day asked Huo Yan and Tang Xin if the women were really in the hospital. He smiled slyly, saying that he felt sorry for her. But in his soul, he seemed to rejoice and be happy about it. Tang Xin told Huoyang that she would call the police station to send people here, and then send a few guys to look for Li Qing. She harshly threatened Van Di, telling him that he would be convicted of kidnapping, attempted murder, and many other crimes. A group of police officers who went to look for Li Qing finally found him after some time. One of them shouted that he had found him. They shouted that they had to hurry because Li Qing had gone crazy. He was digging the earth. Huoyang immediately rushed to help. He was scared by what was happening. The policeman tried to pull Li Qing away, telling him to stop digging. Li continued to do so. Li continued digging furiously, hoping to unearth the women. His hands were covered in blood. He screamed for help because they were buried here. The hole dug by Li's hands was already very deep, but he was unable to find the women buried in it. He started shouting for his sister, but she didn't answer. He continued digging, telling himself that there was still time. Huoyang came over and put his hand on his friend's shoulder, telling him to stop digging. Li was angry. He realized that they were not buried here. Hugh said that Hua and Auntie Wang were currently in the hospital after a serious accident. His face was only serious. He told Li Qing that his sister Hua was alive and would recover. Li was worried, but for a moment he felt better knowing that she was alive. They immediately rushed to the hospital. It was already dark. Huoyan said that Captain Tang intercepted the bandits, and during the chase the car overturned. He continued, saying that one of the criminals was dead, and the other was in intensive care. Auntie Wang and Sister Hua were locked in the truck. Sister had a slight concussion and would recover. Li Qing's face was completely emotionless. His soul was lousy. He didn't understand anything. Huiyaon noticed his strange behavior and asked if Li was okay. He realized that something was clearly wrong. Li Qing calmly replied that nothing had happened and everything was fine, but his face gave him away. Huiyaon asked if he blamed himself for everything that had happened. He began to support his friend, saying that he was not guilty of anything. Li Qing said in a sad voice that it was all his fault. The feeling of guilt seemed to be eating him up from the inside. He said that Wang Day only managed to capture Hua's sister in order to lure him into his lair and kill him, and because of him, his sister was dragged into all this. It was deep night, and Li continued his story. He said that all this was happening only because of him. because An Qing had been injured before, also because of him. He regretted that he didn't want Sister Hua to suffer because of him. The guilt ate away at his soul. He could hardly hold back his tears. Sister Hua seemed to come to her senses. She dreamed of memories where she asked Li why he was sitting at the entrance. Because it was very hot today. She asked if, since he couldn't find a job, he would be interested in working in her store. She remembered telling him that since he had promised, he must do it. She asked him not to worry about her and to come back soon. Tears began to flow from Sister Hua's eyes. Li Qing continued to tell Huoyan that for her own safety, he had to leave her. Huoyan was at work in Miss Lin's office. The weather outside was sunny and clear. It was warm. Hugh told Mrs. Lin that the security and maintenance departments were fully prepared. She thanked him for his work. She said that Li Qing told her that there would be a lot of trouble from returning home today and from him coming every day. She told Huoyan that it would be good if Li Qing lived with him. He was immediately surprised and asked if it was possible to refuse this offer. She asked why he should refuse. She thought they were very close, especially since Huoyan lived alone, and it would be more fun for him. He nervously replied that he preferred to live alone and had no need for a roommate. Sweat dripped from his face. Lin said that the company was fully staffed and the dormitory was all occupied, and she couldn't find a vacancy yet. She asked Li to stay with him for a few days. She promised that she would ask someone to find him a place to live as soon as possible. Huoyan remained silent because he didn't know what to answer. After a while, Huoyan was already at home. It was a warm and clear day outside. The sun was shining brightly. Suddenly, the bell rang. It was Li Qing. He came to check into Huoyan's apartment. He rang the bell several times. Huoyan was wearing pajamas and warm slippers. He reluctantly walked to the door and opened it for his friend. His gaze was not happy. He was not very happy to see Li Qing. He did not understand why he came so early. Huoyan said that Li had come too early. He allowed him to come in. Li Qing took off his shoes and followed his friend. Hugh pointed with his finger to a free room where his comrade could settle down and sleep peacefully. It turned out he was in a bad mood because Li had disturbed his sleep. He said he wouldn't help him unpack and said he was going to go back to sleep. The sweet and charming girl said that it was time for her to go to work. Huo said goodbye to her, and she left. Li Qing was very surprised because it turned out that Huoyan had a girlfriend. He was stunned because he had never told him about it. But on the second day of living together, Li Qing realized that this was not a girl, because on the second day, there was already another girl visiting his friend. On the third day, a charming blonde came out of Huoyan's house, smoking a cigarette in an aesthetic manner. She told him to forget about missing her. Li Qing's emotions were beyond words. He was shocked that Huoyan was so clever. He stood there dumbfounded.